Chapter 3473. Guzhan's Buddha's palm fell, and the Heavenly King's Devil's palm also cooperated with the Buddha's palm, imprisoning an area of 1 mu on the left side of the flag. The side of the flag close to Guzhan was filled with Buddha's light, while the side close to the Heavenly King was filled with Devil's chi. The flag suddenly moved without wind, and countless pearls rushed out of the blue brilliance, fighting to block the Buddha's light and Devil's chi. Stab, stab, countless sounds echoed in the air. Guzhan looked on coldly. Although the thousands of jade talismans continued to pour out, it was obvious that the flag wouldn't attack. The jade talismans could only defend. 2 huge palms slammed down and tore the jade talismans in half. How could they block it? Boom! Just as Guzhan expected, the 2 giant palms fell on the brilliance of the flag, one on each side. Strangely, the giant palms in the air were half a mu in size, but they were only the size of a palm when they fell on the flag. Keep! Guzhan was overjoyed. With a roar, the 2 palms suddenly pulled, and the brilliance of the flag suddenly dimmed. Rumble. As the light of the flag dimmed, the entire space let out a series of rumbling sounds. Amidst these rumbling sounds, the jade talismans that had been blown apart by the Guzhan monk staff trembled violently. With the flag as the center, they rapidly shrank. The jade talismans ignored the 2 palms and the space that had been sealed by the palms. They turned into broken fireflies and sank into the flag. In an instant, the whole flag emitted a bright blue light. Guzhan's expression changed slightly, because he had sensed that the brighter the brilliance, the tougher the flag under the Buddha palm became. Gradually, it was out of his control. Ha ha! Great monk! The Heavenly King with the brilliant Buddha light laughed. It seems that the possibility of us taking this immortal artifact is not high. How about this? Let's take this immortal artifact first and send it to Senior Heavenly Dragon first. Guzhan was slightly disappointed, but looking at the seemingly endless pearls, he did not dare to be negligent. He hurriedly said, "I'll listen to your orders, great monk. Rise." The Heavenly King smiled and his demonic palm left the flag. In an instant, it grew to the size of half an acre and rushed into the air. Guzhan's Buddha palms also rose high into the air. Woo-woo! A whimper that sounded like the wailing of ghosts and howling of wolves sounded. His 2 palms suddenly twisted in midair and grabbed at the flag in perfect coordination. As the 2 palms slowly rotated, the Buddha's light and the Devil's chi actually combined perfectly. A completely different kind of imprisonment force was born again, imprisoning the space around the flag. This sealing power was so great and so strange that the space was collapsing inch by inch. Golden threads and black flames appeared inch by inch, completely separating the flag from the incoming jade. Master! Master Guzhan! Just as Guzhan's eyes flashed red and his heart was filled with joy, an extremely shocked voice came from afar. Guzhan was taken aback. He raised his head and saw a transcendent's golden body, which was more than 100 feet tall, flying over with golden light flashing around it. Beside this transcendent's golden body was a woman in palace attire, riding on a golden flying sword. However, the golden light flashing around the woman was extremely dim. It must be very difficult for her to break through the confinement of the transcendent's golden body. The shocked voice came from this woman. At this moment, Guzhan was no longer the Guzhan from before. He only glanced at the flag for a moment before retracting his gaze. He still urged the Buddha's palm to cooperate with the Devil's palm to grab at the flag. Of course, the closer he got to the flag, the stronger the flag's resistance became. Even though the space within 1,000 feet of the flag had been twisted by the 2 giant palms, the flag could not even flutter. Combine! The Heavenly King roared. Guzhan's willpower surged out uncontrollably. The Buddha's palm and the Devil's palm, which were originally distinct meridians, slowly merged. A wisp of Buddha's light wrapped around a wisp of Devil's chi. Outside the light and Devil's chi, black flames burned. A Buddha's demon's palm was about to take shape. Master Guzhan, what are you doing? Shin naturally became anxious and cried out, "This is the immortal world's mystic origin water control flag. It's the item used to suppress the demonic world. If you take it away, won't that demonic creature appear?" Unfortunately, Jiyuzhen turned a deaf ear to Shin-Shin's words. The same rumbling sound came from the space. Beside the Buddha's demon's palm, countless heavenly flowers, fairies, and even countless devils riding on demonic dragons emerged from the void. The Sanskrit chants mixed with demonic chants shook the entire space. Benefactor Shin, don't shout. Xiao Hua sneered. Jiyuzhen has already turned into a devil. Didn't you see his eyes? Didn't you see the blood vessels on his golden body? Also, the golden body in front of him is originally a devil god's image. However, this devil god's image is plated with a layer of Buddhist light. This devil god's image is exactly the same as Jiyuzhen. It should be the devil spirit of the devil world suppressed by the mystic origin water control flag. By the way, Benefactor Shin, how did you know this flag was previously called the mystic origin water control flag? Yes, little monk. How did you know this heavenly monarch's golden body is a devil god's image? How did you know the devil world can also produce devil spirits? Shin-Shin retorted without hesitation. Instead of asking me, why don't you think about how to stop Jiyuzhen? I'm going to stop Jiyuzhen. What are you going to do? Xiao Hua glanced at Shin-Shin. At this moment, Shin-Shin was incomparably calm. Her expression had returned to normal. She indifferently replied, I'm not going to do anything. I don't have the ability to stop Jiyuzhen. Of course, if I had the ability, I would definitely do it. Because if I don't stop Jiyuzhen, after he takes away the mystic origin water control flag, the devil world under you and me will be born. You and I will die. Humph. Xiao Hua coldly snorted. No need to remind me. This little monk knows what to do. Even if this little monk has to risk his life, this little monk will stop Jiyuzhen. At the very least, this little monk will kill Jiyuzhen right now. Kill. A cold light flashed through Shin-Shin's eyes. If Jiyuzhen is here and Xiao Hui is nowhere to be seen, then Xiao Hui must have already died. If I don't kill Jiyuzhen, I won't be able to avenge Xiao Hui tilde Wu. Without waiting for Shin-Shin to finish speaking, Xiao Hua similarly slapped his hand on the top of his head. Using the nascent soul's hand, waves of water-type heaven and earth spiritual chi surged and condensed towards Xiao Hua. Even the seemingly endless jade luo rushed over along with the gale. Roar! Xiao Hua faced the sky and roared. With a shake of his arms, the heavenly law embodiment technique, dragon transformation art, and heavenly human body bestowment technique were all activated. An extremely large amount of jade luo entered the surface of Xiao Hua's body. The golden light around Xiao Hua's body flourished with a green color. Under Shin-Shin's stupefied gaze, the golden body also expanded to a size of more than 300 feet. The nascent soul's hand on top of the golden body's head expanded to a size of more than 1 mu. It violently tore apart the restrictions around the flag and met the Buddha's demon hand with a backhand. Jiyuzhen really didn't expect Xiao Hua's nascent soul's hand to be so familiar. It was so much faster than his Buddha's demon hand. However, a trace of disdain surfaced in Jiyuzhen's heart. The Buddha's demon hand's power could even tear apart the defense of an immortal tool. Even if Xiao Hua's strength was at the 5th grade of origin energy, it was impossible for him to block it. Sure enough, with a loud bang, the two hands clasped together. The nascent soul's hand collapsed with a loud bang, while the Buddha's demon hand merely shook a little and dimmed a little. Chimpage. Jiyuzhen coldly snorted again. The corner of his mouth revealed a trace of ferocity. His eyes once again fell on the Shenyuan water control flag. However, at this moment, a strange change occurred again. A pitch-black staff appeared in Xiao Hua's hands without him knowing when. This staff became thicker and longer in the blink of an eye. It streaked across the sky and struck the Buddha's demon hand. The staff had yet to reach the body, but the whistling wind of the staff had already destroyed the Buddha's light and demon chi in the void, as well as the fairies, heavenly flowers, and heavenly dragons. What is this thing? Jiyuzhen was greatly shocked. He used all his strength to urge the Buddha's demon hand to fall down with a loud bang. Boom! Another loud bang no less than the previous one. Xiao Hua's wishful staff was knocked away. Xiao Hua's huge golden body also staggered and almost fell down. However, the almost unparalleled Buddha's demon hand was also smashed in half. The half-mu of demon flames and other things were swept away, and many jade pearls once again rushed over. Ji Yuzhen was furious and roared, "Damn it!" Abandoning the Shenyuan water control flag, the Buddha's demon hand grabbed at Xiao Hua's golden body. The huge Buddha's demon hand swept across the sky, and the collapsed place was quickly repaired. When it fell on the top of Xiao Hua's head, it was already as good as new. At this time, Xiao Hua had already stood firmly in mid-air. Looking at the Buddha's demon hand, the demon chi had taken the upper hand. He knew that the unknown demon had completely controlled Ji Yuzhen. If he did not make a prompt decision, he would really die. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua roared. His right arm exerted strength, and the wishful staff smashed down. At the same time, his left hand waved and took out the sword gourd. His left hand pinched a seal, preparing to cast the soul-punishing light. Boom! Another loud bang. This time, the Buddha's demon hand was only smashed by 2 fingers, and the wishful staff was knocked into the air. Because Xiao Hua was prepared, his golden body did not lose its balance. Quick! The moment the wishful staff was knocked away, Xiao Hua's soul-punishing light had already been activated. His left hand pinched a seal, and the green and red soul-punishing light rushed out from the sword gourd. All of a sudden, it nailed Ji Yuzhen's golden body in mid-air. Even the Buddha's demon hand began to collapse. Seeing that the soul-punishing light was effective, Xiao Hua was overjoyed. The spiritual power in his body surged, and he fully activated the soul-punishing light. He wanted to cut off Ji Yuzhen's head in one fell swoop. At this time, Xin, who was watching the battle, did not have time to be surprised by Xiao Hua's means. She clenched her hands tightly and stared at the soul-punishing light, waiting for Ji Yuzhen's head to fall to the ground. Swoosh! Xin was only looking at the sky, but she didn't notice that not far from her feet, in the midst of the surging demonic energy and black flames, a dragon-shaped phantom suddenly rushed out. This phantom flashed through the jade bracelets, and the 100 feet of space seemed to pass through a crack. Without waiting for anyone to see, it had already cut across Xiao Hua's left arm. -12. Chapter 3474. Xiao Hua only felt a black shadow flash before his eyes, as if the entire night had pounced on him. That black shadow was shaped like a dragon, but also like a scimitar. Then, a kind of extreme fear appeared in his heart, and that fear instantly spread throughout his body. Before this fear could subside, another sharp pain came from his left arm. Xiao Hua couldn't help but scream, "Ah!" When he looked down again, his left arm had already been chopped off from the middle. Before Xiao Hua could do anything else, that severed arm had already been swept up by the black shadow and fell into the devilish energy. Roar! The sharp pain in his body had yet to subside, and many of Xiao Hua's primordial spirits screamed in unison, especially that orange giant, whose left arm was also severed, rolling around in pain inside Xiao Hua's bones. Xiao Hua's mysterious dark cloud also rapidly flickered, and that dark green color greatly decreased. Looking at the dragon vein, body, and even the primordial spirits in the space were all heavily injured. The power of that black shadow's attack was actually so powerful. Xiao Hua was heavily injured by that black shadow. Not only did the spirit-slaying Yuan light disappear, the sword gourd floated in the air, and the 300 jong golden body rapidly shrank, gradually turning into a normal human form. Since the spirit-slaying Yuan light disappeared, Ji Yuzhen's primordial spirit recovered. Ji Yuzhen's eyes became even redder, and he let out a beast-like roar. The Buddha's demonic hand fell down and firmly controlled Xiao Hua's body. Xiao Hua was about to be turned into meat paste. All of this happened in a flash. When Xin came to her senses, Xiao Hua's body had already fallen into Ji Yuzhen's demonic hand. Even if Xin wanted to activate her life-saving golden hairpin, it would be too late to do so. Amitabha. Just when Xin was in despair, a crisp voice was heard. This voice sounded very childish, but the tone was filled with vicissitudes of life. "Si Hui." Xin was startled, and immediately became overjoyed. She hurriedly looked around, because that voice didn't have a fixed origin, it just floated in the space. Unfortunately, Xin opened her golden eyes and looked around for a moment, but she didn't see any familiar figures. However, when she saw Ji Yuzhen, she was puzzled. Jiyu Zhen, who had been extremely arrogant and wanted to kill Xiao Hua, now seemed to have been imprisoned. He stood there in a daze, his blood-red eyes staring into the distance. The Buddha's demonic hand that could crush Xiao Hua with a single move also stopped. Xin Xin was not the only one who was confused. Even the golden body in the shape of a heavenly king was confused. The heavenly king failed to activate the giant palm and asked, "Great monk, what are you doing? As long as we kill this Tao cultivator, you and I will be able to obtain the immortal artifact. Senior Tianlong will be able to condense a relic for you with this immortal artifact. With this relic, you will definitely attain Heavenly King Buddha fruit in the future. Not to mention the Heavenly King Buddha fruit, even if it was the Buddha fruit, I wouldn't care for it." Jiyu Zhen finally opened his mouth. His tone was extremely indifferent. In order to hear this voice, in order to meet this person, this poor monk is willing to go to the 9 hells or the 9 spring. Jiyu Zhen's words reverberated in the air. Every word contained the fervor and care in his heart. That's right. Just before entering the longevity hall, the benevolent Manjushri saw Jiyu Zhen trying to devour his relic. He immediately woke up and thought that Jiyu Zhen's so-called search for his younger brother was a lie. At that time, Jiyu Zhen admitted it without hesitation and denied his real purpose of looking for Jiyu Nyan. At that time, Jiyu Zhen had decided to give up everything for the ancient Buddha relic, including himself, even if he had to turn into a devil. However, the development of the situation was such a joke. Now that Jiyu Zhen had really turned into a devil, the voice that he had been thinking about day and night appeared again. The ancients often said that a single slip would cause everlasting sorrow. When you look back, you will be 100 years old. Perhaps this was the case. Xin Xin was stunned. She seemed to have suddenly understood something. However, the Heavenly King did not know. He was very confused. Who is this person? Is this the person who is chanting the name of Buddha? Jiyu Zhen frowned slightly. "Great monk, aren't you this poor monk's demonic golden body? Why don't you know this poor monk's thoughts?" "Amitabha," the Heavenly King said indifferently. "This poor monk is you, but you are still you. This poor monk cannot replace you." Naturally, the Heavenly King's words revealed a flaw. However, Jiyu Zhen did not pay attention to it. He only waited quietly. It seemed that he had enough patience to wait for this moment. As Xin Xin listened, she looked in the direction Jiyu Zhen was looking at. In the distance, a faint figure slowly appeared. It was a little monk in a monk's robe. Of course, this little monk was not benevolent. However, the little monk looked a little panicked, as if he was afraid of something. However, Xin Xin could see that under the little monk's panicked expression, his eyes were extremely bright and filled with determination. "Dumbo. Dumbo, is that you?" Jiyu Zhen's voice trembled. His golden body also trembled as he asked softly. Seeing the shadow that he had seen countless times in his dreams, Jiyu Zhen's hundreds of years of patience could no longer be held back. The little monk also trembled as he answered, "Big brother, it's me. I'm Dumbo." You. Jiyu Zhen originally wanted to ask, "You're not dead yet?" However, when he saw the little monk's dim figure, he could only change his words. "Big brother, I didn't expect to see you one day." "Yes. Big brother." The little monk's eyes flashed with tears. "I also didn't expect that I would be able to endure until this day. All these years. If it wasn't for the fact that I wanted to see Big brother." Do you hate Big brother? Do you want to scold Big brother personally?" Jiyu Zhen's ferocious expression disappeared, replaced by kindness as he probed. The little monk smiled. "How can I blame Big brother? It's my life's fortune to be able to die for Big brother. Big brother, do you know? You've been my everything since I was young. You're my sky. You've done everything for me. I've always thought about how to grow up, how to repay you, how to think of you and do so much for you. Even if I can do one thing for you, I'll be happy. I've been cultivating diligently in Crimson Reed Temple to repay Big brother. When I've succeeded in my cultivation, I'll be able to protect Big brother. I've been praying for Big brother in front of Buddha every day, hoping that Big brother will live a peaceful life. And Buddha really did hear my thoughts. He actually gave me a chance to die for my elder brother. It's true, big brother. I've never blamed you. Even when I fell into an illusion and was lucky enough to leave my soul behind, the only person I've been thinking about is you. Big brother, you're my only family in this life. Dumbo. 2 drops of blood flowed out from Jiyuzhen's eyes as he raised his head and roared. Big brother. The little monk continued, I was originally hiding in the illusory array to avoid the devil dragon. However, a few days ago, I met that interesting little monk. Seeing that he was able to escape from the illusory array, I curiously followed him. I never thought that I would be able to see Big Brother. However, Big Brother, your current situation is very bad. You've been invaded by the demon dragon. Look at your golden body, it's filled with demonic runes. Look at your eyes, they're blood red. Big brother, I don't know what the demon dragon promised you, but I know that you and I are Buddhist disciples. No matter what, we can't dance with demons. That's why I took the risk to come out and see Big Brother. Now that I've said what I need to say, I'm willing even if the demon dragon eats me. Amitabha. The Heavenly King said flatly. Big monk, don't be fooled. This Dumbo is the manifestation of the mystic water control flag, and he's here to stop you from taking the immortal item. If you take the flag away, I'm sure that the little monk will disappear. Jiyuzhen's blood-red eyes looked at the Heavenly King, then at the little monk, and even at Xiao Hua, who was still writhing in the Buddha's hands. Amitabha. The Heavenly King waited for a moment before he chanted, Big monk, you're so indecisive. How can you attain Buddha's fruit if you can't sever your mortal bonds? If you're unwilling, I'll end it for you, won't I? Shut up. Jiyuzhen snorted coldly and cursed. I've never told anyone about Dumbo. Even in front of Ci Hui, who had become a Manjushri Bodhisattva, I lied. Even Taipu and Shin Shin wouldn't know what Dumbo looks like. How could they conjure him? Oh, big monk. The Heavenly King tried to persuade him. The mystic water control flag is an immortal item. It could read your mind. Big monk. Jiyuzhen said flatly. Do you know why I've taken the path of Dharma protectors? The Heavenly King did a double take before his eyes shifted. It's for Dumbo, of course. That's right. Do you think I would let you destroy him if you know I'm doing it for Dumbo? Jiyuzhen asked sinisterly. The Heavenly King was confused. But Dumbo is just an illusion. You're wrong. You're terribly wrong, Jiyuzhen said, enunciating each word. For Dumbo, I could give up my Sarira and let my cultivation go to waste. Why would I let you destroy him? Not even if it's an illusion, but... The Heavenly King didn't know what to say. Even if it's an illusion, the immortal item has found my weakness. That's why I have to bow down, Jiyuzhen said flatly. I can choose not to believe in everyone in the world, and I can choose not to believe in all the Buddhas, but I can't not believe in my Buddha and Dumbo. I believe that the Buddhists would forgive me if I repent before the Buddha every day, so that I can see Dumbo again. Likewise, I believe that Dumbo would live for centuries in an illusory array just to wait for me. Amitabha. You are unreasonable. The Heavenly King shook his head. Demon dragon, leave. Jiyuzhen sighed. I command you with the Buddha's orders. Ha ha ha, can the Buddha control me? Do you really think he would show himself here? The Heavenly King finally laughed. Moreover, can you still leave now that things have come to this? Even if the Buddha is willing to control you, he wouldn't be able to, would he? Brother. The young monk cried out, tears flowing unwittingly as if sensing something. -12. Chapter 3475. Amitabha. Jiyuzhen's golden body put his palms together, bowed his head and said piously, If I have Buddha in my heart, I see Buddha everywhere. If I have Buddha in my heart, I am Buddha. In this life, my heart belongs to Buddha, and in the next life, my heart belongs to Buddha. Thank you, Namo Amitabha. I thank you again. Then, Jiyuzhen patted the top of his head gently, and a benevolent look appeared on his face. He looked at the little monk and said, Dumbo, I'm sorry for not being able to take good care of you. I hope I can still be your big brother in the next life. I swear. I'll take good care of you. The Heavenly King was also stunned. He said anxiously, "You. What are you doing? You. How can you do this?" The Heavenly King realized what Ji Yuzhen was going to do. He shouted in disbelief. He really couldn't understand how Ji Yuzhen, who was filled with endless evil, could do such a thing. Ji Yuzhen raised his hand, and the golden body collapsed. Pieces of it turned into Buddhist light. As Ji Yuzhen's golden body collapsed, so did the Heavenly King's golden body. Only a thick stream of demonic qi was left hovering in the air. Similarly, the Buddha's demonic hand disappeared, revealing the injured Xiao Hua. Xin watched from the side. She didn't have the Dharma golden body, so she was like a child in front of Ji Yuzhen's golden body and Xiao Hua's Dharma body. She was dumbfounded by the sudden turn of events. After listening to Ji Yuzhen's words and seeing what he did, she really didn't expect that Ji Yuzhen, who was so easily taken advantage of by the mystic dragon, would be so obsessed with brotherhood. His devotion to Buddha even surpassed that of all the other arhats she had met. No. Seeing the golden body turn into nothingness, Ji Yuzhen's blood-red eyes were still staring at the little monk, unwilling to disappear. Xin suddenly realized something. Ji Yuzhen might not be really devoted to Buddha, and his last words might not be fully believe. His gambling. Of course, Xin didn't know what Ji Yuzhen was thinking and whether his concern was real. She could only judge others by her own standards, but what was Ji Yuzhen's real thought? Perhaps only the Buddha knew the answer to that. Thinking of this, Xin's mind once again turned sharply, looking at Xiao Hua, who was already dispirited and listless in midair. Xiao Hua's left arm had not regenerated, the place where his arm was severed was surrounded by black gas. The continuous heavy injuries had already made him temporarily unable to deal with them. Xin had an indescribable feeling in her heart. She sighed inwardly, forget it, forget it. Humans naturally have a human form. Only by becoming Buddha can one have Buddha nature. There's no need to think too much about Guzhen's intentions. Since he had an obsession in his heart, he was able to abandon it at the critical moment. Although he did not sever his worldly desires, he had severed his own. But in the end, it was severed. He has no regrets in his life. When he looked at the little monk again, he saw that his face was filled with grief. Where was the fear from before? Just like Ji Yuzhen, in order to see his brother, he had been lonely for hundreds of years in the illusory matrix. But who knew that the moment he saw his brother, he would have to part with him again? How could he not be heartbroken? Not everyone could bear the pain of witnessing the departure of a loved one. The little monk flew in midair, wanting to touch his brother's body before he left. Unfortunately, Ji Yuzhen's words before he committed suicide did not move the Buddha. The heavenly flower and the heavenly maiden disappeared and never appeared again. His soul also did not appear. The little monk could clearly feel his brother's gentle gaze, but he could not see anything about his brother. The path of Dharma protector was originally a void. Ji Yuzhen had passed away, and the Heavenly King had also perished. Mo Long's meticulous plan to kill both Buddha and demon had also failed. The Shenyuan water control flag shone brightly, and jade talismans of various sizes emerged from the brilliance. The jade talismans that were previously excluded from afar also flew towards the flag. Good. Xin nodded slightly and urged the auspicious cloud to fly towards Xiao Hua. Although Xiao Hua was severely injured, as long as they could escape from the Shenyuan water palace and get away from the battle between immortals and demons, Xin was confident that she could save him. Just as Xin flew for about 30 meters, the space suddenly shone with a bloody light. Roar, roar! A dragon's roar soared into the sky. Xin saw a sea of scarlet before her eyes. A dragon several meters long rushed out of the jade talismans, carrying with it a frenzied demonic aura. Not good. Xin was shocked and cried out, Mo Long. However, contrary to Xin's expectations, the demon dragon did not attack the flag after rushing out of the jade talismans. Instead, it rushed directly towards Xiao Hua. Little monk, be careful. Xin hurriedly transmitted. Unfortunately, no matter how fast her thoughts turned, she could not compare to the speed of the demon dragon. Furthermore, Xiao Hua was currently in a weakened state. He had no time to react to the demon dragon's charge. Before Shin-shin's words could reach him, the demon dragon had already opened its bloody mouth and swallowed Xiao Hua's left arm. Ah! Shin-shin covered her mouth in shock. She felt an indescribable stabbing pain in her heart. A feeling of disbelief suddenly arose in her heart. Could it be that the little monk is going to be eaten by the demon dragon? The development of the situation once again exceeded Shin-shin's expectations. After the demon dragon swallowed Xiao Hua's left arm, it did not continue to devour the rest of Xiao Hua's body. Instead, it rapidly shrank. The dragon's body shrunk from several meters long to several feet long, just like before Xiao Hua lost his arm. What was special was that after the dragon shrunk, the bloody light around it flashed again. The black flames within the bloody light transformed into thousands of tiny demons that roared and swam up and down. An arm that was exactly the same as Xiao Hua's previous body suddenly grew out. Following the transformation of this arm, the previously dispirited and listless Xiao Hua suddenly opened his eyes. The silvery white pupils in his eyes disappeared and were replaced by a bloody red. This bloody red did not contain any other emotions, only savagery. Roar! Xiao Hua raised his head and roared. The demonic aura around his left arm surged and quickly spread towards the rest of Xiao Hua's body. At the same time, Xiao Hua's body expanded once again. Demonic aura and black flames surged out from the pores of his body at the same time. Just as Shin-shin was dumbstruck, the demon's body that was over 100 meters long appeared in front of her eyes. Xiao Hua was currently wearing a bloody armor that completely covered him. Above the armor, millions of demons roared at the same time. The bloody light of the armor was mixed with black light, illuminating the surroundings. The black light pierced through the pearls that surrounded him one by one. That light even gave birth to tiny demons that frantically devoured the pearls. Looking at the top of Xiao Hua's head, the two horns on his head flashed with a faint golden light. Strands of golden light flowed along the demonic aura like flowing water, penetrating into the space between the demonic aura and the bloody light. What made Shin-shin even more shocked was that in Xiao Hua's left hand, a pitch-black demonic saber suddenly appeared. This demonic saber was only a foot long. The front part of the saber was damaged and the tip of the saber could not be seen. This demonic saber looked unremarkable, but in Shin-shin's eyes, she could not help but feel frightened. Because this demonic saber was pitch-black and enchanting. When her gaze swept past it, her entire mind felt like it was being pulled in. Moreover, the moment her mind was slightly distracted, her eyes and mind were filled with bloody red. One after another, ferocious demons of unimaginable shapes appeared out of thin air. When she finally shifted her gaze away with great difficulty, she saw the hilt of the demonic saber. The demonic saber did not seem to have a hilt. The entire demonic saber was connected to Xiao Hua's left hand. It looked like a part of the bloody armor, but also like a part of Xiao Hua's left arm. In an instant, Shin-shin understood. Previously, the demonic dragon was the demonic saber's transformation. When the demonic saber chopped off Xiao Hua's left arm, it wanted to devour Xiao Hua's flesh and blood, and then fuse with Xiao Hua's body. But now, needless to say, the demonic saber must have already corroded and taken over Xiao Hua's body. Of course, as for why the demonic saber wanted to take over Xiao Hua's body, and not Ji Yuzhen, and even more not Shin-shin, when she thought about how Xiao Hua's wound did not bleed and how there was even a lingering black aura around his wound, Shin-shin, as a Confucian cultivator, knew that it was because Xiao Hua himself practiced demonic arts. The evils we bring upon ourselves are the hardest to bear. Shin-shin felt a burst of relief for no reason. She was so relaxed that it was as if she had unloaded a heavy burden of 10,000 jin. However, just as this relief passed, she felt a burst of emptiness. That relief was even more like a small thorn that pierced into her heart. Roar! Shin-shin's heart was filled with a myriad of thoughts and feelings. The demonic god Xiao Hua roared again, and the demonic aura around his body flourished. As Xiao Hua raised his hand, rumble. A sound that was 100 times louder than mountain torrents and ocean waves vibrated in the surroundings. The space that was previously filled with the jade talisman had already been gradually occupied by the overflowing demonic aura. No matter if it was under Shin-shin's feet, the surroundings of the Shenyuan water control flag, or even the top of Shinshin's head, there were faint waves of demonic aura that were frantically corroding everything. Where's the little monk Ji-Yunyan? Shinshin suddenly thought of the little monk when she looked around. Fortunately, there was no trace of Ji-Yunyan in the vicinity. With the little monk's alertness, he was able to survive in the illusion array for several hundred years. I'm afraid he can also avoid this kind of crisis. But how can I escape? Looking at the surging demonic aura, as well as the devil that was just born because of Xiao Hua's existence, Shinshin didn't know what to do. The brilliance of the Shenyuan water control flag in front of her had already dimmed in the demonic aura. However, in Shinshin's eyes, it was incomparably warm. This was also her only hope. Almost without thinking, Shinshin urged the auspicious cloud to hastily rush towards the Shenyuan water control flag. Perhaps because the Shenyuan water control flag had already been suppressed by Xiao Hua's demonic aura, the distance that Shinshin couldn't get close to previously was now easily closed again. Shinshin's thinking was still too optimistic. Her hope was naturally the despair of the demonic god Xiao Hua. How could that demonic saber let her have her way? Shinshin had only flown a few feet when she saw Xiao Hua, who was 1,000 feet tall, waving his hand and laughing coldly. "Ha. You bastard flag, you have suppressed me for 1,000,000 years, isn't it very satisfying? Today, let's also change positions. I'll let you have a good time." -12. Chapter 3476. Demon god Xiao Hua waved his left arm, and the broken blade drew a pitch-black blade mark in the air. The blade mark was like blood, and it cut open the void. Spatial cracks spread rapidly along with the blade mark, and slashed towards the Shenyuan water control flag. At the spatial cracks, countless tiny devils, either laughing or wailing, also rushed over. "Catcher!" A soft crack sounded, and the entire space shook violently. The brilliance around the Shenyuan water control flag, which couldn't be shaken by Ji-Yuzhen's Buddha demon hand, was now easily split in half like a chicken's shell. The Shenyuan water control flag swayed slightly, and the brilliance on the flag's surface was completely restrained. Presumably, if the devil blade was waved again, the Shenyuan water control flag would be greatly damaged. Unfortunately, after one slash, demon god Xiao Hua's body rapidly shrank, and his left arm drooped down slightly, as if his strength was exhausted. Alas! Demon god Xiao Hua's voice sounded again, and it sounded very helpless and regretful. "This body is very good, but it's a pity that my cultivation of the Devil Realm's devil technique is not good enough. After I control it, I'll have to temper it even more. I'm afraid that with hundreds of millions of blood spirits, I'll be able to achieve small success, right?" After this voice, Xiao Hua waved his left hand again, and the devil blade flashed with black light, and a tidal wave of devil chi rushed into it, and then Xiao Hua's devil body expanded again. What should we do? Shinshin just recovered, and her originally calm heart became anxious again. She once heard that when the Shenyuan water control flag was unfurled, all evils would retreat, and nothing could invade it. Since the devil blade had been suppressed by the flag for 1,000,000 years, how could it be a match for the immortal realm's immortal artifact? But she didn't expect that when the devil blade moved, it would have such power, and even the flag couldn't resist it. Then what kind of devil realm's immortal artifact was this devil blade? Control, yes, it must be controlled. Suddenly, Shinshin realized, whether it's immortal artifact or devil artifact, they are all dead objects, and if no one controls them, they can't be used. Unless the immortal artifact or devil artifact has its own spirit. The demonic saber transformed into a dragon because it had devoured thousands of blood essences. It was not the true spirit of the demonic saber. Although the demonic saber could attack, it could only fight against cultivators of the mortal realm like the little monk. It was useless against the Shenyuan water control flag. The devil blade could only rely on the little monk's physical body and the little monk's devil technique to unleash a true attack. As for the mystic origin water control flag, it's a defensive immortal artifact. It doesn't have any means of attacking. She even needs someone to activate it. When Shinshin realized this, before she could look at the Shenyuan water control flag, the flag immediately flashed a faint light and flew towards Shinshin. An immortal artifact was indeed an immortal artifact. Xin had just seen the mystic essence water control flag flying, and in the next moment, the flag had already appeared in her hand. Seeing that she had unexpectedly obtained an immortal artifact, Xin was not as ecstatic as she imagined. Almost without thinking, she touched her chest with her hand and a drop of blood came out from the tip of her heart. Xin's face instantly turned pale. When the blood from the tip of her heart dripped into the Shenyuan water control flag, the flag shone brightly. Xin hurriedly performed a Daoist technique and urged her true qi to hit the flag. The flag flashed rapidly, and a wisp of aqua-blue crystal thread came out and entered between Xin's eyebrows. The flag gradually shrank, preparing to rush into Xin's Niwen palace. But at this moment, Xin's face showed a painful expression. The crystal thread between her eyebrows split open and dark red blood flowed out. Xin's physical body trembled at the same time. Even the golden light emitted by the palace dress could not stop it. Xin's physical body could not contain the Shenyuan water control flag and showed signs of collapsing. Ha ha ha! How could it be so easy to control an immortal artifact? If you could control it, I would have found a body 1,000,000 years ago. The demon god Xiaohua, who had grown into a 300-meter tall demon body, laughed mockingly from the side. If you're willing, you can be Laozi's servant. Laozi will teach you the Tao of dual cultivation. After 1,000,000 years, perhaps you'll have such a heaven-reaching opportunity. Swoosh! The brilliance of the mystic Yuan water control flag receded and the crystal thread was sucked into the flag. Immediately after, Xin's blood droplet appeared on the flag once again. However, this time, the blood droplet was much smaller than before. Xin's face was ashen. She opened her mouth and the essence blood flew back into her mouth. Immortal artifact. Sure enough, it was not something an ordinary person could control, even if it was someone as strong as Xin. Little flag, your good days are over. Demon god Xiaohua roared, and half of the devil blade chopped down again. Quickly return to my embrace. I will love you. Xin almost did not think at all. She urged the true qi in her body and rushed it into the Shenyuan water control flag. The flag received the true qi and immediately emitted a blue brilliance. When the brilliance was born, the true qi in Xin's dantian seemed to be sucked in by a big hand and was instantly emptied. However, along with the brilliance of the flag, countless true qi of heaven and earth appeared out of thin air and poured into the flag at the same time. A sparkling and translucent jade emerged from the Shenyuan water control flag and blocked the devil blade. Ka! The jade broke, the devil blade retreated, and the brilliance of the Shenyuan water control flag receded again. No. Seeing this, Xin's heart was like a mirror. The battle between the Shenyuan water control flag and the devil blade was a battle between her and Xiaohua. The Shenyuan water control flag and the devil blade were equally matched, but she was far from Xiaohua. Xiaohua's devil technique was insufficient, but he had a corporeal body. The devil blade could block the first attack, but she could not block the second attack. As for whether the Shenyuan water control flag could block the third attack, Xin was not optimistic. The devil blade still had the ability to attack, but she did not. In the end, she could only fall into a desperate situation. If she wanted to live, she could only think of other ways before the Shenyuan water control flag was damaged. Take drastic measures. Xin looked at Xiaohua's shrunken body and her eyes flashed with determination. This is the only way now. As for the future, I can't explain it to others. Forget it, for today's escape, for the billions of creatures in the 3 continents, I'm afraid this is the only way. Since she had made her choice, Xin bit her lips, threw the Shenyuan water control flag in her hand, and flew towards the devil god Xiaohua. Kaka. Little girl, are you ready to abandon the dark and join the light? The devil god Xiaohua's black qi was surging, and the countless devils around him were laughing wildly. This voice seemed to come from Xiaohua's mouth, but also seemed to come from the mouths of thousands of devils. Or do you have an ulterior motive? Xin only pretended not to hear, quietly took out her golden hairpin, and accelerated towards Xiaohua. At this time, Xiaohua was still several zhong tall. Seeing Xin getting closer and closer, the devil god Xiaohua waved his hand, and a ray of devil qi blocked in front of her. Little girl, Men and women should not touch each other. You are a Confucian cultivator, don't you know? I don't have the appetite to devour you today, so don't join in the fun. Wait until I take care of the little flag, I will let you go. How could Xin listen to this kind of bewitching? She clenched her teeth, and inserted the golden hairpin into her chest. A blood-red golden brilliance was born like a sword river, and poured into the devil chi like a waterfall. Tens of thousands of devils wailed as they were killed. However, they only managed to erase the devil chi. The sword river didn't even get close to Xiao Hua. Go! Xin was somewhat desperate. She pulled out the golden hairpin, and the blood-red hairpin turned into a meteor and rushed towards Xiao Hua. The devil god Xiao Hua sneered, and did not wave his devil blade. He only raised his right hand, and his devil palm grabbed the golden hairpin in his hand. "Ayo!" The devil god Xiao Hua screamed, and the golden hairpin fell out of his right hand, and directly inserted into his devil armor. Once the golden hairpin was inserted, golden light shot out in all directions, and the devil chi that was pouring into his devil body suddenly stopped. Even the several jong tall devil body also stopped. Xin did not dare to be negligent, and once again rushed towards Xiao Hua's head. When she was about 1 jong away from Xiao Hua's head, with a pu sound, the golden hairpin flew out, and Xiao Hua's devil body moved again. Failed on the verge of success. Xin looked at Xiao Hua's malevolent face, and her heart died. At this moment, the Shenyuan water control flag moved again, as if it knew Xin's thoughts. The previously dissipated fragments of the jade luo flashed and fell around the devil god Xiao Hua. Although the devil god Xiao Hua did his best to resist, he still could not stop the jade luo from falling. Following the disappearance of the jade luo's blue light, the devil god Xiao Hua was once again unable to move. Little flag, you've used this move for 1,000,000 years, don't you feel tired? Can't you change your position? Although the devil god Xiao Hua was very helpless, he was still unable to move, and the scattered devils around him spoke up. The devil god Xiao Hua's words were quite human, but people did not know if it was the devil blade's idea or Xiao Hua's idea. However, the current Xin could not tell at all. She only saw that the devil god Xiao Hua was motionless, and was immediately overjoyed. She hurriedly flew in front of Xiao Hua, and looked at his malevolent devil face, as well as the countless devils and bloody light on his devil face. She stuck out her head, and extended her mouth. "Little girl? Are you in heat?" The numerous devils at the side asked very strangely. Indeed, if Xin was not in heat, then what was she? They saw Xin's lips, and her soft tongue gently pried open Xiao Hua's mouth. She closed her eyes, and her tongue entered. Good heavens, this guy's luck with women is not shallow. We can also feel good now. The devils laughed loudly, but their laughter was still echoing in the air. From Xin's mouth, half of the dazzling golden core entered Xiao Hua's mouth. As soon as that golden core entered Xiao Hua's mouth, it immediately entered Xiao Hua's middle dantian. This half of the core was like a resplendent golden star, completely illuminating Xiao Hua's body. Within his middle dantian, the scarlet core that Xiao Hua hadn't refined before seemed to be attracted and flew towards that golden star. The two cores collided. Boom! A muffled sound rang out. Golden and scarlet radiance carrying dense true qi seeped out of Xiao Hua's middle dantian and directly rushed out of Xiao Hua's demonic body. That radiance was like a sword, easily destroying the demonic blood armor. Large amounts of decaying blood were cut off from Xiao Hua's body, and the demonic tools that swarmed over were forced to retreat. -12. Chapter 3477. Xin clearly did not expect that Xiao Hua actually had a scarlet dan core in his body. Her originally extremely disappointed expression was now filled with anger and grievance. However, since things had already come to this point, there was no point in regretting. She bit her lips with all her strength, causing them to turn white. Only then did she circulate the last of her true energy and fly back to the Shenyuan water control flag. Xin had already done everything she could. As for whether Xiao Hua could control the devil dragon or not, that was not something Xin could know. Looking at Xiao Hua again, The devil armor on his body had just been shaved off by 30%. Inside Xiao Hua's body, the golden and scarlet colors resonated with each other like fireflies. Boom boom boom. Countless awe-inspiring chi pierced through the air and bombarded Xiao Hua's devil body. The rolling devil chi was like ice and snow meeting boiling water, instantly melting away. What is this? The devil god Xiao Hua seemed to have yet to regain consciousness as he cried out in surprise. Xin Xin coldly smiled and said, "It seems like you're not the real Devil Blade's true spirit. You don't even know this." In the Confucian Cultivation Enlightenment book, there is an awe-inspiring cloud map. The 5 Qis gather in the universe. The heavenly heart shakes the 4 continents. This is my Confucian Cultivation's heavenly heart. Heavenly heart. Heavenly heart. Ha ha ha, so what if it's the heavenly heart? The demonic dragon was extremely arrogant. If you give this half of the heaven's heart to this little monk, you can stop me from controlling his corporeal body. I can't use the demonic body to destroy the flag, but how can you stop me from controlling his primordial spirit? With a heart in the chest, the body will be upright. With a relaxed posture, the primordial spirit will be peaceful. Xin Xin coldly smiled. I'd like to see how you'll control this little monk's primordial spirit. Although Xin Xin's face was very calm, she was very anxious in her heart. Her heavenly heart sounded very frightening, but its true use was not that. At this moment, she had no other choice but to give it to Xiao Hua. On one hand, she wanted to stop the demonic dragon from invading Xiao Hua's body. On the other hand, she wanted to awaken Xiao Hua's mind that was bewitched by the demonic dragon. Only when Xiao Hua's mind was awakened, would this heavenly heart be able to help his mind return to its original position and fight against the demonic dragon for his body. Of course, Xin Xin still had a move that could really take drastic measures, and that was, to borrow the strength of the mystic origin water control flag to first suppress Xiao Hua, who had lost his physical body, and then chop off his head with a single sword strike. Since the devil dragon was separated from the devil saber, the mystic origin water control flag could naturally still suppress the devil saber. Of course, perhaps there was no need to go through so much trouble. If Xiao Hua's head was chopped off, Xiao Hua would naturally lose his life. Without Xiao Hua, the devil blade and the Shenyuan water control flag would return to the previous situation. Naturally, the devil blade would still be suppressed by the flag. However, Xin Xin was still a bit hesitant because this was taking away Xiao Hua's life. Then I, your father, will let you see what is called virtue is 1 foot tall, the devil is 10 feet tall. The devil dragon was obviously very conceited. After a sneer, it went silent. After that, there was no more after that. Xin Xin did not hear the extremely conceited laughter of the devil dragon anymore. Extremely strange. Xin Xin tried her best to open her golden eyes, but the devil god Xiao Hua suddenly closed his eyes. Then, for the time it took to brew a cup of tea, there was no movement at all. However, immediately after, the bloody light above Xiao Hua's head flourished once again. That surging devil chi uncontrollably rushed up to the sky from the top of his head. Woo 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 woo. In the midst of sobbing, the Shenyuan water control flag's jade luo was suddenly rushed out of a several mu wide gap. Oh no. Xin Xin turned pale with fright. She took a deep breath and the pale gold color on her face reappeared. She really wanted to urge the last trace of gold chi to chop off Xiao Hua's head. Woo woo. The flashing gold and red colors around Xiao Hua's body suddenly disappeared. Countless amounts of devil chi once again gushed out from Xiao Hua's skin. This devil chi circled around Xiao Hua once, and that thick devil armor appeared once again. Wang wang. Even the devil blade in Xiao Hua's hand began to become restless. A pillar of devil chi shot out from Xiao Hua's body and also rushed out of the jade luo under Xiao Hua's body. At the same time, Xiao Hua's devil body once again expanded, filling the heaven and earth. In the end, he was more than 300 meters tall. Xin Xin stared blankly. Looking at Xiao Hua's mountain-like devil body, she couldn't help but bitterly smile. She couldn't help but hold back the gold chi in her mouth. She was secretly astonished. What's going on? My heavenly heart of Confucian cultivators is definitely not something that the devil dragon can control. Only those who have practiced Confucian cultivation techniques can control it. If the little monk's mind is invaded by the devil dragon, he can't possibly absorb the heavenly heart into his dantian. Just as Xin was hesitating, oh, the sorrowful cry of a devil came out from the devil chi. The armor covering Xiao Hua's head immediately turned into the image of a malevolent devil. The sorrowful cry disappeared, and the devil disappeared at the same time. Immediately after, a sorrowful woman wept. Xiao Hua's face once again turned into a rather pretty woman. This guy. Xin suddenly understood. When she looked at the devil pillar that pierced through the heaven and earth, countless amounts of devil chi poured into it. Xin finally understood. This guy is actually refining the devil spirit. He's too daring, isn't he? However, he's merely a cultivator of the 5th level of essence energy. At most, he's only a cultivator of the 6th level of essence energy. How can he easily subdue the devil dragon? Although Xin didn't understand, she could only resign herself to fate. In the end, the heavenly heart was already a meat bun, swallowed by Xiao Hua, who made Xin gnash her teeth in hatred. The true qi in Xin's body had already dried up. With the devil blade in Xiao Hua's body, she was no longer afraid of the Shenyuan water control flag. What else could Xin do? She looked at Xiao Hua's head, where the devil repeatedly appeared. Later, his entire body surged with a bloody light. Wailing and howling devils and resentful spirits appeared everywhere. Xin could only fly back to the left side of the Shenyuan water control flag. Seeing Xin fly back, the Shenyuan water control flag approached Xin as if it depended on her for survival. Xin's eyes flashed with a trace of joy. She waved her hand in disbelief and the Shenyuan water control flag flew into her hand. Looking at the Shenyuan water control flag in her hand that wasn't too eye-catching, Xin was really overjoyed. Previously, she didn't think of subduing this immortal tool. She just wanted to find someone. However, when she came here, not only was there no one, she almost lost her life. Just now, she had the opportunity to subdue the immortal tool, but her body couldn't contain the immortal tool. Just when she completely gave up, the immortal tool was obediently delivered into her hand. The 2 heavens of sorrow and joy were nothing more than this. Of course, at this time, Xin also somewhat understood that the Devil Saber's previous strike had damaged the Shenyuan water control flag, allowing her blood essence to seep in. Although her blood essence had only passed through the immortal tool once, the immortal tool also had a sense of closeness to her. In the future, if she painstakingly refined and sharpened it, she would be able to control this immortal tool. Of course, what made Xin feel most at ease was that since the Shenyuan water control flag took the initiative to fall into her hand, the Devil Saber shouldn't be in any danger. Xiao Hua would also be fine. This feeling of relief came so suddenly that Xin was somewhat caught off guard. She even accepted it very naturally. However, holding the Shenyuan water control flag in her hand, Xin was still very vigilant. She observed Xiao Hua's movements from afar and took some medicine. After an unknown amount of time, the devils around Xiao Hua's body no longer appeared. The devil armor gradually withdrew into Xiao Hua's body. At the same time, Xiao Hua slowly shrunk until he was the same size as an ordinary person. When the devil aura on Xiao Hua's face disappeared, he was once again a little monk in high spirit. However, this little monk's eyes flashed with blood red, revealing a gaze full of smiles. "Little monk?" Xin called in a low voice. "Yes." Xiao Hua looked down at the devil saber in his left hand and casually replied. "TPU?" Xin called again. "I'm here." Xiao Hua was somewhat impatient and unhappily replied again. Who are you?" Xin was still not at ease and asked again. Xiao Hua raised his head and glanced at Xin and the Shenyuan water control flag in her hand. He curled his lips and replied, "This little monk is here. You can rest assured. This little monk is still a little monk and has nothing to do with that devil dragon. Oh, I also have to congratulate Xin Tanyu. He actually obtained the immortal tool of the Dao sect. Truly unparalleled luck. Then what about the demonic spirit of the demonic god dragon?" Hearing Xiao Hua's sour tone, Shin Shin didn't mind at all. She probed again, because she really didn't understand. That devil dragon? Oh, this little monk is currently teaching it how to read, Xiao Hua said in all seriousness. What? Learn how to read? Shin Shin was somewhat stunned. Xiao Hua said with a smile, yes, this little monk is currently teaching it how to write the inscription entering a noble's gate is as deep as the ocean, henceforth Xiao is just a passerby. This. Shin Shin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She knew that Xiao Hua was really perfunctory, but what she didn't know was that what Xiao Hua said was the truth. In fact, when the Devil Saber's devil spirit seized Xiao Hua's left arm, Xiao Hua had already sensed that something was wrong. When the devil dragon began to control Xiao Hua's blood drop paradise, Xiao Hua knew that he was definitely not the devil dragon's opponent. Facing such a powerful opponent, Xiao Hua was also helpless. When the devil dragon took control of his body, he hurriedly let go of his body and his mind wandered to the left side of the space. Just as Shin Shin expected, that devil spirit was indeed condensed from the blood spirit of the devil saber from 1,000,000 years ago or even longer. During the days when it was suppressed by the mystic origin water control flag, the devil spirit had thought of all sorts of ways to escape. The heavenly dragon in the longevity lamp in the longevity hall was also condensed from a devil spirit. The ancient Buddha of the Manjushri Bodhisattva was enshrined in the longevity hall not to condense the power of faith like the devil dragon said, but to suppress the devil saber. When the ancient Buddha was present, the devil dragon didn't dare to appear. Only when the little monk, Ci Hui, took away the ancient Buddha and became the Buddha of the Manjushri Bodhisattva did the devil dragon dare to raise its head. However, Jiyuzhen's body wasn't very useful, and the devil dragon couldn't possess Jiyuzhen to enter the arch bridge of the mysterious water palace. Therefore, the devil dragon could only bewitch Jiyuzhen. -12. Chapter 3478. In the beginning, Mo Long didn't intend to use Xiao Hua's body because Xiao Hua's performance in the illusion made Mo Long somewhat apprehensive. For 1,000,000 years, no cultivator who entered the illusion was able to escape. However, Xiao Hua relied on the power of a soul cultivator to break free from Mo Long's control. Xiao Hua's sobriety also made Shin Shin sober up. However, when Xiao Hua stopped Jiyuzhen's Buddha demon hand and Mo Long used the demon blade to cut off one of Xiao Hua's arms, Mo Long was shocked to discover that Xiao Hua actually had the blood-dripping paradise's demonic technique. Moreover, Xiao Hua's physical body was actually so strong, only then did Mo Long have the intention to possess Xiao Hua's body. In Mo Long's eyes, Xiao Hua's mind was like a child's, unable to be compared to his own. Therefore, after obtaining Xiao Hua's body, the first thing Mo Long wanted to do was to destroy the Shenyuan water control flag. Even if he couldn't destroy it, he had to heavily injure it. Only then could Mo Long escape with the demon blade. However, with Shin Shin's obstruction and the Shenyuan water control flag's resistance, Mo Long actually couldn't control Xiao Hua's body. Thus, the demon dragon could only try to possess Xiao Hua's body. Seeing Xiao Hua's weak state of mind, the demon dragon was like a scoundrel on the street who saw his beautiful wife walking in the dark. Xiao Hua's trembling state of mind made the demon dragon feel relieved. However, when Xiao Hua's mind hid in the space, leaving only a small portion as bait, Mo Long swaggered to devour this small portion of mind. Only then did Mo Long suddenly discover that he was no longer in Xiao Hua's body. What awaited him was Jade Archive Xiao Hua's smiling eyes, green-robed Xiao Hua, soul cultivator Xiao Hua's salivating mouth, and even bone-tempering Xiao Hua's fierce gaze. Even in the face of so many primordial spirits, Mo Long still didn't care. In his eyes, they were just a few more lambs to satisfy his hunger. Only when he discovered that he couldn't move and could only let Jade Archive Xiao Hua and the other primordial spirits wantonly devour him did he truly understand what it meant by entering a noble house is as deep as the sea. This was Xiao Hua's territory. Mo Long couldn't make the decision. Henceforth, he really became a passerby with Xiao Hua. "Little monk, who are you?" Seeing that Xiao Hua didn't tell the truth, Shin Shin felt was helpless, but she still stared at Xiao Hua and asked, "Me? The little monk TPU?" Xiao Hua said to Shin Shin with a smile, You have already asked this question many times. No, you're definitely not Tip. Shinshin's face was pale. You want to tell me who you are? Is that necessary? Xiao Hua slightly frowned. After that, he raised his left hand, and the devil blade gradually appeared. He said, "Wait for a moment." "All right, I'll wait for your answer." Shinshin wanted to get to the bottom of things. "You have to give me an answer." Xiao Hua raised the demonic blade and waved it in the air. The demonic blade turned into a demonic palm and grabbed below him. The remaining demonic chi in the space surged into the demonic palm. It took a full 6 hours for the demonic chi to be completely absorbed by the demonic blade. "Are you done?" Shinshin asked. She had enough patience. Xiao Hua sighed, nodded, and did not answer. On the other hand, Shinshin waved the Shenyuan water control flag, and the countless pearls in the space instantly turned into thousands of brilliance and fell into the flag. It seemed that her method was many times more brilliant than Xiao Hua's. "You can tell me now, right?" Shinshin still asked. Xiao Hua smiled and said, "I don't think it's necessary to expose each other's identity. I think it's necessary." Shinshin replied with equal harshness. "All right, tell me who you are first." Xiao Hua compromised. "I can't tell you my name, but I can let you know my true face." Shinshin bit her lips and replied. While speaking, a golden light slowly flashed on Shinshin's face, and an outstanding beauty was revealed. When Xiao Hua heard that Shinshin only said to show her true face, he immediately felt some regret. He was about to speak when he saw Shinshin's extraordinary appearance, which seemed to be gnashing her teeth. This. Xiao Hua was somewhat absent-minded for a moment, but then he smiled bitterly. The same magic power surged on his face, and Xiao Hua's true face was revealed. "Is this you? Is this your true face? You're not lying to me, right?" Shinshin seemed to be somewhat in disbelief and asked 3 more questions. Facing Shinshin's doubt, Xiao Hua shrugged and said with a smile, "Believe it or not, this is me. Of course, I can tell you my name, but you have to tell me too." "Sigh, forget it." Shinshin shook her head, a strange expression on her face. "Women are really strange. Since you don't want to say so much, why do you want to know so much?" Xiao Hua muttered, but he didn't know that women wouldn't pursue the matter with people they didn't care about, but they would get to the bottom of the matter with people they cared about, because women were most afraid of being deceived. Before entering the profound water palace, Shinshin knew that Xiao Hua was a little inappropriate, but she didn't pursue the matter. But now, Shinshin didn't know, but her nature made her pursue the matter. "You." Shinshin seemed to have heard Xiao Hua's mutterings and became somewhat angry. "Be content." Yes, I'm really quite content." Xiao Hua nodded, but suddenly, he came to his senses and hurriedly said, "Oh right, this little monk will now, sigh, there's no need. That half of the heaven's core is already in your dantian. How can I take it?" Shinshin waved her hand. "Just treat it as a reward for saving me so many times." "Oh, okay." Xiao Hua nodded. Immediately, Shinshin waved her hand, took out half of the tortoise shell and handed it to Xiao Hua. "Since I'm a good person, I'll give you the heavenly book as well." "Oh, why?" Xiao Hua looked at the tortoise shell. Although his heart was connected, he still asked curiously. "The heavenly book and the heaven's core are one. Since you have half of the heaven's core, it's useless without the heavenly book. Moreover, don't you want to cultivate the 5 Qis unification? Only by comprehending this heavenly book can you cultivate the real 5 Qis unification." Shinshin explained and handed over the tortoise shell. "Thank you, Shin." Xiao Hua took the tortoise shell. The way he addressed her finally changed. However, he looked at it for a while and asked, "How do I read the heavenly book? Do I use the clear eyes technique? Or the divine sense technique?" Nothing at all." Shinshin laughed. "I don't know how to read it either. Moreover, I'm afraid no one on the hidden immortal continent knows how to read it." "What the?" Xiao Hua held his forehead and said, "So the heavenly book is useless to you? No wonder you gave it to me. If you don't want it, quickly return it to me." Shinshin's face turned cold. "Che, How can I return something that is in this little monk's hands? Xiao Hua flipped his hand and the tortoise shell disappeared. Xiao Hua said proudly, not to mention the heavenly book, even the devil blade is the same. There is also the devil spirit. Chimpate. Xin slightly curled her lips. That's right, then, how is the heaven's core together with the heavenly book? Xiao Hua immediately thought of the tortoise shell that Elder Wu gave him. It seems like there is no heaven's core. Xin did not find it strange. As if she knew Xiao Hua's greedy character, she transmitted a few sentences to Xiao Hua and finally said, "This is a secret technique. No one can know about it. Also, it must not be recorded on the jade eyes." I know. Xiao Hua beamed with joy and replied, "I gave you a lot of things. Are you going to give me something in return?" Xin said indifferently. "What do you want? Just say it." Xiao Hua smiled and said, "As long as I have it, I can give it to you." "Good. The 7 flying swords in your hand are not bad. Give them to me," Xin said without any trace of politeness. Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows and nodded, "No problem." As he said that, he took out the 7 flying swords that were transformed by the illusory swordsman and said, "These 7 flying swords can form the 7-star sword formation. Do you need the sword formation method?" "No need." Xin took it and shook her head slightly. Xiao Hua handed over the 7 flying swords. Then, he changed his mind and took out 2 flying swords. He said with a smile, "These 2 flying swords are of better quality. Do you need them?" Xin's eyes lit up and said with a smile, "Good, these 2 flying swords should be able to refine 2 Mandarin duck swords. I want them. These 7 flying swords. You can take them all. This little monk has no use for them." Xiao Hua was rarely generous. "So that's how it is. You have no use for them. No wonder you are so generous to give them to me." Xin returned the same words. Xiao Hua stretched out his hand and said with a smile, "If you don't want them, quickly return them to me. In your dreams." Xin also took back the 9 flying swords. Then, as if she had thought of something, she said, "By the way, the magic wand in your hand, it looks like the 5 elements wishful heaven cudgel, right?" "Ah, you want my cudgel? That's my livelihood. If you take it away, how can I live?" Xiao Hua said with a pitiful face. Xin sneered and said, "Why would I want your cudgel? I just saw your generosity and suddenly thought of the refining method of the 5 elements wishful heaven cudgel." "What? How do you know how to refine the 5 elements wishful heaven cudgel? Quick, tell me." Xiao Hua was overjoyed. "How would I know?" Xin said slyly, "It should be someone else who knows, but I can't tell you. I only know what material this 5 elements wishful heaven cudgel is made of." "That's fine too." Xiao Hua took a step back. The 5 elements wishful heaven cudgel is called the 5 elements, but in fact, it is a 5 elements item. Since its name contains the 5 elements, its material must also be a 5 elements item. Xin explained, "If you want to cast a cudgel out of the 5 elements, then you need to cast the cudgel from the 5 elements materia. There are many 5 elements in this world, and there are many materials that can be used to refine the 5 elements wishful heaven cudgel, such as..." Xin mentioned some materials, many of which were materials of the heaven cudgel, and even materials of the 5 elements cudgel. In the end, Xin said, "Looking at your wishful heaven cudgel, I'm afraid that it has a prototype, but when you use it, it can't penetrate the heaven and earth. The correct material of the 5 elements wishful heaven cudgel should be..." The last material, Xin actually transmitted her voice, which seemed to be very secretive. -12. Chapter 3479. What? It's these. Xiao Hua was dumbstruck as if he suddenly realized something. Then, he said regretfully, "Alas, it's true. I should have thought of it earlier." "Oh. Why, have you encountered these things before?" Xin was surprised. Xiao Hua didn't hide it and nodded, "It's true. But those things are too big. With my current ability, I can't take them away. Of course, if you have the ability to take them away and refine them, You'll be able to break free from the 5 elements and do as you please. Xin smiled. Little monk, you still need to work hard. But speaking of the little monk, Xin's mouth twitched. At that time, Xiao Hua laughed. But as he spoke, he suddenly thought of something and asked with a sad face, "Oh right, we've already taken the immortal weapon and the demonic saber. How do we get out of the Shenshui palace? Where's the exit?" "You've already taken the demonic saber and refined the demonic spirit. Didn't you get any information?" Xin's expression changed greatly and she asked hurriedly. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. "How would the demonic spirit know? Isn't that the same as the immortal weapon?" "But I've never refined an immortal weapon. How would I know?" Xin was also anxious. Forget it. Xiao Hua waved his hand. "We have such treasures in our hands. At worst, we'll turn around and kill everyone. First we'll pull out the tendons of that ancient Shenshui beast and skin it." He. Xin suddenly laughed. Don't worry. Follow me and I'll guarantee your safety." You. Xiao Hua pointed at Xin with a helpless expression. He really didn't expect Xin to act shamelessly. "What's wrong with me? You've lied to me and Ci Hui for so long. Can't I lie to you once?" Xin said with a smile. At this point, Xin suddenly realized something and shouted, "Right, where's fellow immortal Ci Hui? Could it be that he's really like what Ji Yuzhen said, he's already achieved fruition?" Amitabha. Xiao Hua put his palms together and said with a smile, "Although Ji Yuzhen has turned into a demon, his words should be trusted. If he said he achieved fruition, then he achieved fruition. It's because Ci Hui achieved fruition that Ji Yuzhen was stimulated. It caused his mind to become unstable, allowing the demon spirit to take advantage of it. One becomes a Buddha, and the other becomes a demon. The cause is different, and the result is also different. Alas, that poor little monk Ji Yunyan." Xin felt a bit sad. Thinking of the little monk Zunian, Xiao Hua's heart skipped a beat. He glanced around and said, Xin, this little monk has some secrets of the devil's doctrine. I'm afraid it's not good for you to be here. What are you trying to do?" Xin snorted and said, "If you don't want me to look, then so be it. What's so great about that?" "Ha." Xiao Hua chuckled. He reached out with his left hand and grabbed downwards. Devilish energy surged downwards, and soon after, hundreds of corpses followed the devilish energy into the air. Humph. Xin swept a glance, and once again let out a cold snort from her nose. Holding the Shenyuan water control flag in her hand, she flew to the side. Xiao Hua also waved his hand without any trace of politeness, and a billowing devil chi condensed into a wall in front of Xin. Amitabha. Xiao Hua chanted the name of Buddha, and said in a low voice, "Little monk, you can come out now." Amitabha. A faint shadow appeared in the air. It was the little monk that Xiao Hua saw in the illusion before. However, at this moment, Ji Yunyan's face was filled with extreme panic. He bowed and said, "Ji Yunyan greets you." Speaking up to here, Ji Yunyan didn't know how to address Xiao Hua. After all, Xiao Hua chanted the name of Buddha, but in his hand, he controlled the devil blade, and even swallowed the extremely terrifying devil spirit. This Xiao Hua was far from the Xiao Hua that he saw in the illusion. Xiao Hua didn't care about Ji Yunyan's fear. He waved his hand, and a little monk's body flew out from a pile of corpses. This body's eyes were tightly closed, as if it was in a deep sleep. Its face was exactly the same as Ji Yunyan's. "Ji Yunyan," Xiao Hua said in a deep voice, "you're not willing to be used by the devil spirit. Your heart is commendable. Your body was also preserved by the devil spirit when you were alive. I obtained the will of the devil spirit, and am proficient in the devil spirit technique. I can send your soul into your body. If nothing unexpected happens, you should be able to survive and see the light of day." Really? Ji Yunyan was overjoyed, and asked in disbelief. Xiao Hua said with a smile, "Of course it's true. However, before you survive, I still want to ask you, what's the deal with Wang Bianfei in the illusion? Could it be that he's also a resentful spirit of this place?" "All right, Master knows." Ji Yunyan explained carefully in his joy, Wang Bianfei is this little monk's playmate in the illusion. He's not a resentful spirit of this place. As for what he is, this little monk also doesn't know. However, according to this little monk's knowledge, Wang Bianfei came to the illusion through the dream. Everything that master saw should be his dream. Ah! There's such a miraculous thing. Xiao Hua was a bit stunned. This was somewhat out of his imagination. This little monk doesn't know if what Wang Bianfei said is true or not. However, because I got to know him, this little monk had a place to hide in the illusion, and even a place to play. Therefore, I never thought too much about it. Ji Yunyan was still careful. If master wants to know if Wang Bianfei is speaking the truth, you'll know when you go take a look. If you're willing, you can go with me, Xiao Hua said with a smile. Yes, many thanks for master's grace. Ji Yunyan bowed deeply. However, just as Xiao Hua raised his hand and prepared to send the soul extracted by the devil spirit back into the body, that Ji Yunyan suddenly said, Master, this disciple has a presumptuous request. I don't know if I should say it. Just say it. Xiao Hua nodded slightly. Can this little monk's big brother survive? Ji Yunyan said softly. Xiao Hua shook his head slightly. You were extracted by the devil spirit. I can send you back. If Ji Yuzhen really died, I'm also powerless. For me, Big Brother would rather walk the path of a protector. He didn't know that he would fall into the cycle of reincarnation. Ji Yunyan's face showed a sad expression. Xiao Hua said with a smile, Ji Yuzhen's matter was originally going to be discussed after I settled you down. Since that's the case, please wait a moment. While speaking, Xiao Hua patted his forehead, and that Buddha Surya stepped into the air. Seeing this, Ji Yunyan was pleasantly surprised. He bowed down and said, This disciple greets Buddha Lord. Bing! Buddha Xiao Hua chanted the 9 syllables mantra. As the golden mantra fell into the air, Ji Yuzhen's soul slowly appeared. Big Brother! Ji Yunyan couldn't help shouting and rushed over. Dumbo! Ji Yuzhen also wept softly. He reached out and hugged Ji Yunyan. The souls of the 2 brothers actually hugged each other and wept. After a while, Buddha Xiao Hua said in a low voice, Ji Yuzhen, it's getting late. You should go. Yes, many thanks Buddha Lord. Ji Yuzhen put his palms together. Ji Yuzhen has sinned deeply in this life. I hope that in the next life, speaking to here, Ji Yuzhen's face showed a somewhat bitter smile. The cycle of a protector is cruel. How can it be turned into a human body? Buddha Lord! Ji Yunyan shouted, this disciple is willing to give up the chance to live and let Big Brother take over this disciple's body. No. Ji Yuzhen roared, how can Big Brother let you enter the cycle of reincarnation? Stop arguing. Buddha Xiao Hua said indifferently, I don't have such great divine ability for the time being. Don't think about such a beautiful thing. Yes, this disciple understands. Ji Yunyan lowered his head in disappointment. However, Ji Yunyan, step aside. I can help your big brother enter the path of the 6 paths of reincarnation. Although the karma of this life can't be attached to the body, after reincarnation, he can recultivate Buddhism. Buddha Xiao Hua said indifferently. Many thanks Buddha Lord. Not only was Ji Yunyan overjoyed, even Ji Yuzhen was also somewhat overjoyed to the point of tears. Ji Yunyan hurriedly escaped from Ji Yuzhen's embrace and ran far away. Ji Yuzhen, I, Nan Wu, shall be reborn in the name of Maitreya Buddha. I shall remove the karma of this life, all your sins shall be attached to my body. Buddha Xiao Hua chanted Buddhist sutras. Endless Buddhist light from his mouth landed on Ji Yuzhen's body. Rays of black light flew out from Ji Yuzhen's body. Strands of green flames floated out and landed on Buddha Xiao Hua's body. When nothing else flew out from Ji Yuzhen's body, his figure became increasingly dim. Many thanks Buddha Lord for transcending. Ji Yuzhen put his palms together and said, Lin. Buddha Xiao Hua chanted the 9 syllables mantra again and was about to transcend Ji Yuzhen. At this moment, Ji Yunyan suddenly flew over and grabbed Ji Yuzhen's hand. He said to Buddha Xiao Hua, Buddha Lord is merciful. Previously, Big Brother said that he would still be my big brother in the next life and would still protect me. Therefore, Disciple is willing to enter the 6 paths of reincarnation with Big Brother. Dumbo, you. Jiyu Zhen was about to get angry again. Big Brother, you can't control me in this matter. Instead of having me chase after you, why don't you let me reincarnate with you? If you enter another reincarnation, I'll still be with you. No matter what you do in this life, I'll always be your little brother, Jiyu Nyan said very firmly. Buddha Xiaohua was greatly moved. He really didn't think that there would be someone in this world who would give up on the chance of survival for brotherly love. Even so, he still advised, Jiyu Nyan, I'm not the real Buddha Lord right now. I can't guarantee that I'll definitely let you reincarnate together. Buddha Lord, there's no need to say any more. To be able to reincarnate with Big Brother, Disciple's life is already complete. Whether or not we can still be brothers in the next life is no longer important to Disciple. Sigh, that's right. Buddha Lord, Disciple understands. To be able to walk through this life hand in hand with little brother, Disciple is also satisfied. Jiyu Zhen reached out and grabbed Jiyu Nyan's shoulder, pulling him into his embrace with a look of extreme happiness on his face. Namo Mettria Buddha in the next life. Buddha Xiaohua's eyes were already wet as he chanted Buddha's name. Lin, but as the 9 syllables mantra descended, the souls of the two turned into light smoke and gradually disappeared. Ah, there's nothing better than brotherly love. Xiaohua sighed inwardly after sending the Buddha's Surya into his Niwen palace. Looking at Jiyu Nyan's physical body, he waved his hand and a sea of fire appeared, incinerating the hundreds of corpses. The souls of these corpses weren't as lucky as Jiyu Nyan and were already devoured by the demonic dragon. Xiaohua couldn't revive them. -12. Chapter 3480. Maybe. Gunnyan was afraid that Guzhen couldn't enter the human path, so he wanted to enter reincarnation with Guzhen and lend Guzhen a hand with his merits. When Xin Xin saw Xiaohua take out the corpse of the evil spirit of Shenshui Palace, she knew that he wanted to find a body for the soul of the little monk Gunnyan. However, when she saw only Xiaohua and Gunnyan was nowhere to be seen, she couldn't help asking. Xiaohua didn't intend to tell her in detail. He told Xin Xin to use the Shenyuan water control flag to open the formation and briefly told her what had happened. When he heard that Gunnyan gave up the chance to be reborn and chose to enter reincarnation with Guzhen, he couldn't help sighing. Looking at the sage river at dusk, he said with a sigh, since the little monk Gunnyan cares so much about his brotherhood and bloodline, I'm sure even Buddha will bless him. Actually, Guzhen is not that bad. Xiaohua also sighed with emotion. If he didn't care about his brotherhood and believed in the sincerity of his brotherhood, I'm afraid I would have been killed by him even before the evil spirit appear. 2 brothers from the countryside, 2 Buddhas who have converted to Buddhism, have such true feelings. Why don't many people who have many extravagant hopes that others can't reach in their whole lives? Xin Xin looked a little lonely. Looking at the orange sunset that was as red as an egg yolk, she said faintly, they can give up their kinship for power, they can give up their bloodline for rules, they can be ruthless for benefits. In their hearts, where did their kinship, bloodline, and love go? Is it possible that face is more important than freedom? Is it possible that strength is more important than happiness? Thinking of what Xin Xin said before entering the Sage River, Xiaohua knew that Xin Xin had endless worries in her heart. However, he didn't dare to ask too much. He just nodded and said, indeed. The most important thing in the world is love. Love is more beautiful than this sunset and more important than everything in the world. Unfortunately, this love was too simple, too easy, and too neglected by others. Many people gave up on love for their own pursuit. It's rare that Guzhen and Gunnyan guarded their brotherly love until the last moment. They should be the happiest people in the world now. Xin Xin didn't change her appearance. At this moment, the afterglow of the setting sun shone on her face. Her eyes flashed with confusion and haziness, looking even more beautiful than the setting sun. Perhaps. A faintly discernible sigh could be heard, as if it was the sorrow of the ages. Xiaohua didn't dare to look any longer. He placed his hands behind his back and accompanied Xin Xin to stand on the Saint River. He looked at the setting sun in the distance and didn't say anything else. Little monk. Shin looked at the red clouds in the sky and said, "In this life, perhaps we won't have the chance to meet again." "You want me to call you that?" Xiao Hua shrugged his shoulders and said with a smile, "Since we won't have the opportunity to meet again in this life, why must I know her name?" "Sigh, maybe you're right." Shin frowned as she looked at the flowing water of the Saint River and said faintly, "But I think you're still upset that I didn't tell you my name." "I don't understand." "Little monk, can't you just suffer a little?" "Shin Tanyu, is this little monk that vulgar?" Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. "You already said that we won't meet again in the future. Why must we make it so clear? Besides, you're from a scholarly family. To this little monk, you're a colossus." "Chumph, do you think I don't know what you're thinking?" Shin curled her lips. "My name has always been Shin. It's just that it's Shin for old and new." "I told you long ago, but you're stupid, you didn't think of it. What's your surname?" Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows and asked curiously, "You only told me your name. Why didn't you tell me which scholarly family you're from?" "There's no need for that." Shin shook her head. "You just need to know my name. Millimeter, I understand." Xiao Hua nodded. "Actually, I already told you my surname in the profound water palace. Once you enter a noble family, you're as deep as the ocean. From now on, my dear Xiao is just a passerby. It's just that you're not much smarter than me and didn't understand. You. Shin said the word you 3 times in a row. Without taking out her mount, auspicious clouds appeared under her feet and she soared into the sky. Her voice was still filled with hatred. "I won't see you in this life, and I won't be bothered to see you in my next life either. Alright, we won't see each other for 3 lifetimes. I won't be seeing you off." Xiao Hua raised his hand and smiled at Shin. Seeing Shin fly into the distance, Xiao Hua was shocked again. He patted his head and thought regretfully, "Damn it, bickering is refreshing. But no matter what, I should have let this girl send me to Jinshan Temple. Ci Hui has already attained enlightenment. Who knows where he went? I know the location of Jinshan Temple, but can I find it myself?" At this moment, Shin's voice fell into his ears like a mosquito. "Oh right, little monk Xiao, I forgot to tell you. 300 li south of Saint River is Pingxi City. East of the city is Deity Temple. The temple's abbot is a good friend of Ci Hui. You can go there and ask for the location of Jinshan Temple. Chumph, don't think too much. This is what Ci Hui entrusted to me before entering the profound water palace. And the person I'm looking for is really my nephew." Shin's words were so soft that they couldn't be heard. Of course, with Shin's cultivation, she wouldn't have flown too far. It could only mean that she didn't really want to say it. "Haha, thank you." Unlike Shin, Xiao Hua suddenly used the Buddhist's lion's roar. After sending out the 4 words, he immediately used the wind evasion technique and rushed towards the south while laughing heartily. While flying, he was still imagining Shin's trembling face after being frightened by this thunderous sound. Damn it. Shin wasn't the only one who was startled. Even the strange bird beneath her was so startled that its wings exploded and it almost fell from the sky. Shin managed to stabilize the strange bird with great difficulty. She couldn't help but grumble. However, after a while, when the strange bird stabilized its flight, Shin frowned again. "This little monk is interesting. Where did he come from? It's not rare for him to have Buddhist and Daoist techniques, but how can the Devil Realm's techniques be in the same body as my Confucian cultivator's true chi? It's a pity that this little monk is so tight-lipped. I'm afraid it won't be easy to get any information out of him. Hehe, little monk Xiao, they're really interesting. Alas, it's just that. I'm afraid I won't be able to see such an interesting little monk again. The affairs of this world are really hard to understand." Xiao Hua didn't have as many thoughts as Shin. He flew 100 li south of Saint River. Suddenly, he froze, dumbstruck. Although night had fallen, he could clearly see that the scene below his feet was the same as what he saw in the profound water palace's illusory formation. It was exactly the same. At the foot of the mountain ridge, which was not too high, A small stream gurgled in the darkness. Amidst the sparse aquatic plants, a few frog croaks could be heard. Beside the stream was a bodhi tree. However, there was nothing under the bodhi tree. There were only some tracks of ox hooves on the flat ground. There were no small monks or chess pieces. Xiao Hua was shocked. Is this still an illusory formation? While he was thinking, the green light between Xiao Hua's eyebrows flourished. Layers of dense lightning flashed in the night sky. Fortunately, the scene didn't collapse under the lightning and thunder, causing Xiao Hua to feel slightly relieved. Just as Xiao Hua was about to continue forward, his heart skipped a beat. He reached into his bosom and felt around. Hiss! Xiao Hua couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. In his hand was the black triangle that Ji Yunyan gave him in the illusory formation. Damn it, what's going on here? Is this an illusory formation or not? Xiao Hua didn't understand. An indescribable strangeness arose in his heart. Xiao Hua looked around and even released his soul sense. He didn't find anything abnormal. Only then did he look at the triangle in his hand. This triangle looks a bit familiar, right? Didn't I also get a triangle when I killed Qin Jian? Saying this, Xiao Hua waved his hand and took out the triangle from the space. Just as he took it out, Xiao Hua was stunned again. Strange. Normally, I would send things into the space. Why didn't I do it in the illusory formation? Why did I put it in my bosom instead? Could it be that the space can't be created in the illusory formation? It's a good thing that the secret of the space wasn't exposed in the illusory formation. Otherwise, how could Mo Ling be fooled? Immediately, Xiao Hua used his transcendence vision to look at the triangle. It really was the same as the triangle that Ji Yunyan gave him. There was an indistinct chess piece hidden inside. Since the two triangles had some origin, Xiao Hua somewhat understood. Someone probably brought this thing to the Dawn Rain continent just like the appearance of the setting sun island. He didn't pass through the three natural formations and left it behind. I'll keep it for now. Who knows what it is? Xiao Hua kept the two triangles, but his eyes were looking ahead. In the darkness of the night, there was a small village, and there was a disciple he took in the illusion. However, according to Ji Yunyan, that was in Wang Bianfei's dream. He didn't know if Wang Bianfei still remembered. Was the thing that happened in Wang Bianfei's dream real? Unfortunately, the difference between dream and reality wasn't small. Xiao Hua actually flew 100 li before he saw the familiar mountain village and familiar mountain ridge. This was much farther than the environment. Xiao Hua very familiarly swept his divine sense over Wang Bianfei's home. However, when he saw that Wang Bianfei's home was pitch black without any light, he couldn't help but be stunned. He only saw Wang Bianfei once, and it was in the illusory formation. How could he know what Wang Bianfei's home was like at night? However, looking at the entire small village, other than a few farmhouses that were dark like Wang Bianfei's home, the other houses more or less had candles. There were also some children making noise. Xiao Hua couldn't help but be somewhat puzzled. -12. Chapter 3481. Thinking for a moment, Xiao Hua descended from the sky and arrived at the neighboring house next to Wang Bianfei's house. The farmhouse's small courtyard didn't have any walls, only a few withered branches were inserted there. Xiao Hua stood next to the fence that also couldn't be considered a gate. He put his palms together and said, "Amitabha." As Xiao Hua's voice entered the house, a 40-something-year-old man's head popped out from the flickering light. Then the man's head shrank back. A rather thin woman walked out with a grey thing in her hand. Without waiting for Xiao Hua to speak, the woman handed over the thing in her hand and said with some displeasure, "Little monk, you came to the wrong house. If you want to beg for alms, you have to go to the village. Master Wang lives there." Xiao Hua smiled and hurriedly raised his hand. He said with a smile, "Auntie misunderstood. This poor monk isn't here to beg for alms." "Oh. If little master isn't here to beg for alms, then what are you here for?" Hearing that Xiao Hua wasn't here to beg for alms, the woman hurriedly withdrew the thing in her hand and even changed the way she addressed him. Xiao Hua pointed at Wang Bianfei's house and asked, "Excuse me, auntie, is this the house of little benefactor Wang Bianfei?" "Yes." The woman nodded. "Why is little master looking for Wang Bianfei?" "Oh, I understand. Little master is here to find Wang Bianfei to paint, right?" Hearing this, Xiao Hua was happy. He didn't need to find a reason, so he nodded and said, "Auntie is right. But why is there no one in little benefactor Wang Bianfei's house?" "Ayo, little master, it's really unfortunate. I'm afraid you've come for nothing," the woman said exaggeratedly. "There's no one in Wang Bianfei's house, and I reckon there won't be anyone in these few days." "Ah, how can that be?" Xiao Hua was anxious. This little monk is here on master's order to ask Wang Bianfei to paint. If he's not home, how can this little monk return? "Auntie, do you know where Wang Bianfei went?" "Hehe, you've asked the right person. I'm afraid only I know where they went in this village," the woman said with a smile. "What does auntie mean?" This little monk doesn't understand. Xiao Hua is even more baffled. This little monk heard that Wang Bianfei only has one mother in his family. Where can an orphan and widow go? If it were anyone else. "Hehe, I really wouldn't tell them." The woman was very mysterious. She lowered her voice and said, "Before sunset today, most of the villagers were plowing the fields and hadn't returned. Because my old man." "Boy's mother, what are you doing there?" A loud roar came from the house. The woman trembled and hurriedly cried out, "Boy's father, I'll be right back." Then, he finally said concisely, "When I came back, I bumped into Wang Efei's mother. She locked the door and left with Wang Efei. She said that she was going to Pingxi City. There was a rich merchant who wanted Wang Efei to paint for them and wanted to stay in Pingxi City for a month. TSK. She said that she had 3 coins of silver. My goodness, 3 coins of silver. How many things could she buy with that?" After sighing with emotion, the woman didn't dare to stay any longer and turned around to leave. "Auntie, which direction is Pingxi City?" Xiao Hua hurriedly asked again. The woman raised her hand and pointed to the south again. She turned around and asked curiously, "Could it be that you're not a monk in Pingxi City's temple?" "Many thanks, auntie." Xiao Hua didn't dawdle with her. He hurriedly released his Buddhist awareness and swept it in the direction of Pingxi City. Xiao Hua originally had a calm expression as he thanked the woman. However, his expression suddenly changed. Anger appeared on his face. He snorted faintly and immediately used the wind escape technique to fly away. Hearing Xiao Hua's cold snort, the woman stared blankly and turned her head to look. However, where was Xiao Hua's shadow in front of the gate? "Ghost!" The woman screamed and hurriedly rushed into the house. However, her hand was still tightly clutching the grayish food. Since there were people in this world, there were naturally good and evil people. Even if human nature was good, when faced with temptation that exceeded their own limits, it was inevitable that they would do something out of line. Therefore, as long as there were people in this world, there would be no pure land in this world. Even if it was the so-called pure land, even if it was the pure land that Buddha spoke of. In a dense forest 50 li away from the small village, only a few dozen zhong away from the main road, there was a small carriage parked. Beside the carriage stood a man holding a sharp knife. This man was none other than the Wang family's housekeeper. In front of him, there was a woman kneeling. Behind the woman was Wang Bianfei, who was being firmly protected by the woman's hands. The woman hit the ground with her head and sorrowfully said, "Housekeeper, please take pity on us, mother and son. Just take the gold, we definitely won't dare to say anything. Moreover, from today onwards, we will never return to the village. This way, no one will know that you took the gold. Why should you stain your hands with blood because of this?" The housekeeper took a step forward and pressed the sharp knife against the woman's chest. He smiled nastily and said, "Do you think we won't say anything just because you said so? Who knows what you think after you leave? I only know that dead people can't speak. As long as you are a living person, you can't keep secret." "Housekeeper." The woman was in despair. She grabbed the sharp knife with one hand and blood flowed from her fingertips. Finally, she pleaded, "If you want to kill, then kill me. My son is still young. No matter what he says, others won't believe it. Can you let him go?" The blood on the woman's hand dripped on her towering chest. Under the lantern of the carriage, it looked somewhat coquettish. The housekeeper's eyes flashed and unconsciously revealed a trace of a lewd smile. Looking at the child behind the woman, he smiled nastily and said, "How about this? I will give your child a chance. Thank you, housekeeper. Thank you, housekeeper." The woman didn't know what the housekeeper was thinking and hurriedly thanked him. Soon after, she said to Wang Biafei behind her, "Son, why don't you hurry and thank the housekeeper? You must remember, in the future, you must never say anything." Wang Biafei stood behind his mother. His fists were tightly clenched and his teeth had already bitten through his lips. He stared at the housekeeper without saying a word. At this moment, compared to what Xiao Hua saw in the illusion, he was a bit more timid. "When did I say I was going to let this little bastard go?" The housekeeper laughed and said, "I see that you have some beauty. You might as well serve me. This gap is your child's chance. He will run as far as he can. After I am satisfied, I will kill you first and then kill him. How far he can run will depend on you." "You." The woman obviously didn't expect the housekeeper to say this and was really stunned. "You don't agree? Well, now I will kill him first." The housekeeper raised his hand and pretended to take the sharp knife away. "No, no, I promise you, I promise you." The woman hurriedly grabbed the sharp knife. Blood flowed out of her hand again. Then, she hysterically shouted behind her, "Son, why don't you hurry and run, mother?" Wang Biafei cried and shouted. His hand tightly grasped his mother's lapel. He also didn't have the rare decisiveness in the illusion. "Why don't you hurry and run?" Wang Biafei's mother turned her hand and slapped Wang Biafei's face. The 5 bloody marks were deeply imprinted on his face and also hit his heart. At this moment, Wang Biafei didn't know what to choose. Fortunately, before he could make any choice, a faint voice came from above his head. "Someone actually dares to bully this Xiao's disciple. He must be tired of living. Master." When Wang Biafei heard this voice, it was as if he woke up from a dream. He looked up at the night sky and shouted, Is it really you? I am not dreaming again, right?" As he spoke, Wang Biafei thought of something and hurriedly said, "Master, quickly save this disciple." When Wang Biafei shouted like this, the housekeeper and Wang Biafei's mother were stunned. Wang Biafei's mother hurriedly turned her head. The surprise on her face couldn't be concealed even in the darkness of the night. The housekeeper, without hesitation, grabbed the knife from Wang Biafei's mother's hand. However, when the housekeeper only took 2 steps back and was about to escape, he seemed to have thought of something. He clenched his teeth and revealed a ruthless expression. Using all his strength, he stabbed towards Wang Biafei's mother's chest. Nothing could be more vicious than this. This housekeeper actually felt that it was impossible for him to escape from Xiao Hua's hands and wanted to drag someone down with him before he died. Only this kind of evil person would come up with that kind of vicious idea. However, the housekeeper's knife only pierced a few inches before it stagnated there and couldn't move forward anymore. Wang Biafei's mother couldn't see anyone in the night sky and was caught off guard when the housekeeper snatched the knife away. She wondered if she had heard wrongly and hurriedly turned her head back. Seeing that the housekeeper was about to attack again, she unhesitatingly spread out her arms and blocked in front of Wang Biafei, pouncing towards the sharp knife. Naturally, without Wang Biafei's mother pouncing in front of the sharp knife, her body couldn't move. Then, very strangely, she moved back half a foot before stopping. A gentle voice sounded in her ear, "Sister-in-law, don't be afraid. This evil person won't be able to do evil again in the future." "Master, master." Wang Biafei was really excited. He jumped on the ground and shouted, "Where are you? Quickly, quickly come on." Xiao Hua's voice laughed and said, "Don't worry, isn't master here now?" In the night sky, a thin and tall figure covered in starlight flew over from a distance. However, when he got closer, his bald head spoiled the scenery. "Master, it's really you." Wang Biafei saw Xiao Hua's head and familiar face and couldn't help but shout again, "Disciple isn't dreaming this time, right? If it's a dream, would you be in such danger?" Xiao Hua smiled, but there was coldness in his smile. He had seen everything that the housekeeper had done. He really didn't expect that there would be such a vicious person in this world. Compared to him, Xiao Hua felt that Mo Ling was clean. -12. Chapter 3482. This concubine greets, Master. Wang Bianfei's mother didn't dare to neglect and hurriedly knelt down to thank him. Xiao Hua waved his hand. How could he let her kneel down? He smiled and said, "Don't be so polite. I don't like empty etiquette the most. Mother, you see, what the boy said this morning is right." Wang Bianfei held his mother's arm and said happily, the boy really acknowledged a master in his dream. Now, master is here. Do you believe it? Son, why aren't you greeting your master? Wang Bianfei's mother hurriedly pulled Wang Bianfei and said, "You acknowledged a master in your dream. Now you have to kowtow." Yes, the boy knows. Wang Bianfei also remembered and hurriedly knelt down and said, "Disciple Wang Bianfei greets master." Xiao Hua didn't stop him and nodded, "Master doesn't have so many rules. It's the first time you meet, so kowtow a few more times. There's no need to be so troublesome in the future." Yes, disciple knows. Wang Bianfei obediently kowtowed 9 times before getting up. Xiao Hua then took some medicine for Wang Bianfei's mother and walked to the front of the housekeeper. He looked up and down and slightly shook his head. The housekeeper's eyes were filled with despair and even some fear. However, Xiao Hua didn't see a trace of begging for mercy. Thinking for a moment, Xiao Hua turned his head and said, "Wang Bianfei." "Yes, master." Wang Bianfei helped his mother apply the medicine. Seeing the wound on his mother's hand heal, he was even more convinced. Hearing Xiao Hua calling him, he hurriedly responded and walked to Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua asked, "Today's disaster, was it because you drew the portrait of Miss Wang and got the gold?" "Yes." Wang Bianfei gnashed his teeth and nodded. Xiao Hua asked again, "Is it related to Wang family?" This. Wang Bianfei didn't dare to speak carelessly. His mother hurriedly said, "Master, it can't be. Although Master Wang is a bit arrogant, he's not domineering. He still values my son. Since he rewarded the gold, he definitely wouldn't go back on his words. This must be his own idea." "Yes, master." Wang Bianfei also echoed, "From what this steward said just now, it should be that he was aroused by greed and wanted to harm this disciple. What are your plans?" Xiao Hua asked. Wang Bianfei thought for a moment and said honestly, "This disciple will listen to master. Whatever master says is what it is. Master wants to hear what you think." Xiao Hua shook his head and asked, "Master." Wang Bianfei's mother wanted to speak but was stopped by Xiao Hua. This. Wang Bianfei looked at the butler, who looked like a clay statue. He gritted his teeth and said, "Those who kill will be killed. If we don't kill him, the boy and mother won't be able to return to the village." "What else?" Xiao Hua's expression didn't change as he asked indifferently. Wang Yifei's mother opened her mouth and wanted to say something, but she didn't dare to say anything. That Wang Biafei pondered for a moment, his face flushed red, and said in a low voice, "What is master talking about? This disciple doesn't quite understand." Xiao Hua smiled as he looked at Wang Bianfei and then at Wang Bianfei's mother. He knew that under his mother's protection, Wang Bianfei was like a flower under a big tree. All the wind and rain were covered by the big tree. He didn't know about the wind and rain outside. What he saw in the illusion was indeed what happened in the past. However, in Wang Bianfei's dream, it was greatly modified by Wang Bianfei. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua found it funny. Not to mention Wang Bianfei, even if it was him, didn't he also have a wishful thinking in the illusion? Soon after, Xiao Hua said, "Hehe, Wang Bianfei, don't be nervous. If in the dream, you met such a wicked person and killed him, what would you do? Didn't the little monk mention it to you?" When Xiao Hua mentioned the dream, Wang Bianfei's eyes lit up. He pondered for a moment and said, "After this disciple kills this person, I will naturally destroy the corpse and destroy the evidence. Then, I will bring mother back to the village as if nothing happened. Even if the Wang clan discovers that the housekeeper is missing, they won't suspect this disciple. Have you ever thought that the housekeeper is deceiving you? When you leave the village, he will mention it to others. Or perhaps, when you leave the village, you will be seen by others. Xiao Hua took advantage of this opportunity to patiently teach Wang Bianfei. When Wang Bianfei heard this, his expression slightly changed. He bitterly smiled and said, "Since Master said this disciple feels that it's better if we don't return to the village. Even if others didn't discover the housekeeper's matter, the entire village knows about the gold." When Wang Bianfei said this, Wang Bianfei's mother's expression greatly changed. She seemed to have thought of something. The Wang clan is wealthy, but the Wang clan is also powerful. No one dares to provoke them. Xiao Hua says word by word, "Although your family's gold is much less than the Wang family's, if you can't protect this gold, not to mention the housekeeper, in the future, the Wang family's servants and even the villagers will more or less find trouble with you. Jade is innocent, but possessing jade is a crime. Master's words are extremely true." Wang Bianfei's mother hurriedly smiled and said, "I always felt that something was wrong these few days. The Shun Laois wife next door always came to borrow food from me." The village entrance. "Ari, I won't say any more. Only today did I understand. A few days." Xiao Hua was slightly stunned. He looked at Wang Bianfei and asked, "How many days have passed since you painted the tiger?" "Yes, Master," Wang Bianfei said, "that was 10 days ago. However, it should be because disciple dreamt of it last night that Master saw it." "Right, Master came out from inside. What about the little monk? He was originally a part of the illusion. He can't come out. Moreover, you won't be able to see him in the future." Xiao Hua didn't hide and replied, "Master." Wang Bianfei's face was somewhat sad. "The little monk is quite good. Master also knows. Unfortunately, the world is unpredictable. Good people don't necessarily have long lives." Xiao Hua looked at the evil housekeeper again. "Of course, sometimes evil people also don't have long lives. Wang Bianfei, how do you think this housekeeper should die?" Xiao Hua moved his gaze away from the housekeeper's face and asked again, "How should he die?" Wang Bianfei was stunned. This question was indeed somewhat difficult for a child who wasn't even 10 years old. Let his head flow with pus, the soles of his feet bubble, and his body grow poisonous sores. Let him howl for 10 days and 10 nights until he dies. Wang Bianfei said as if he was telling a nursery rhyme. "Good, as you wish," Xiao Hua said with a smile. "Ah, Master, disciple just said it casually." Wang Bianfei replied in surprise, "Let's forget about killing him. Find a hole to bury him. Hehe, this evil person bullied you and your mother like this. If Master didn't come, you too would have died miserably in his hands. How can you let him die peacefully?" Xiao Hua pointed his hand. A trace of devil energy fell between the housekeeper's eyebrows under the cover of the night. The housekeeper trembled. His eyes that were originally looking death in the eye flashed with an unspeakable fear. The housekeeper's body could also move at this moment. Moreover, it was very powerful. This was because after the trembling, the butler's entire body was trembling, as if he was twitching and struggling. Even the muscles on the butler's face were twisting and trembling. Bean-sized beads of sweat instantly seeped out from his forehead, neck, and other parts of his body, soaking his clothes. Hee. The housekeeper opened his mouth as if he wanted to scream. However, his tongue was twisted into a ball. His throat was also uncontrollable. He wanted to scream, but he couldn't. He could only howl like he was retching. Gradually, the housekeeper curled up into a prawn. His body seemed to have shrunk. Under the carriage's lantern, his face appeared particularly dark. After another moment, the housekeeper suddenly rolled on the ground. His head, hands, and body hit a tree and hit a stone. Strands of black blood seeped out from his body. This blood, sweat, and mud smeared on the housekeeper's body. He looked worse than a beggar. Wang Bianfei looked somewhat unbearable. Wang Bianfei's mother had already closed her eyes, not daring to look. Wang Bianfei couldn't help but say, "Master, look." Xiao Hua said indifferently, "You have to remember, if Master didn't come, I'm afraid you would be even more miserable than this." "Yes." Wang Bianfei bit his lips. His eyes flashed with a trace of unswerving determination. After all, he was born in a village. Although he was fated to become Xiao Hua's disciple, no matter if it was hidden immortal continent or western paradise, they were both not good places. Xiao Hua admittedly protected him for a while, but it was impossible for him to protect him for a lifetime. Wang Bianfei was also not comparable to Liu Yi. Therefore, Xiao Hua could only let him experience a little bit. Although this experience was somewhat cruel to him. Pa! A muffled sound echoed. Wang Bianfei's eyes jumped. He saw a thin crack burst open on the housekeeper's forehead. A pitch-black pus flowed out from the inside. Immediately, muffled sounds continuously came from the housekeeper's body. Cracks like a baby's mouth spread all over the housekeeper's body. Sigh. Let's go. Xiao Hua slightly sighed. He knew that if he continued to look, Wang Bianfei's heart might not be able to bear it. He waved his hand and said. Wang Bianfei finally let out a sigh of relief and respectfully said, "Yes, I will listen to Master's instructions." "Go, bring the carriage over." Xiao Hua pointed with his hand and said, "Master, I will go." Wang Bianfei's mother rushed to go. Xiao Hua smiled and said, "There's no need for sister-in-law to go, let Wang Bianfei go." "Mother, the boy will go, you just have to wait." Wang Bianfei hurriedly ran over and untied the horse's reins from the big tree. He pulled the horse over with great effort. That horse obviously refused to accept it. It shook its head and almost pulled Wang Bianfei to the ground. Wang Bianfei's mother's heart had long been pulled. But seeing that Xiao Hua was silent and motionless, she also didn't dare to move. When Wang Bianfei pulled the carriage over with great difficulty, Wang Bianfei's mother couldn't help but run 2 steps and took the reins. She respectfully said to Xiao Hua, "Master, please get on the carriage." "He, there's no need for sister-in-law to drive the carriage." Xiao Hua smiled and said, "It's already late. You and Wang Bianfei are both tired. Just rest in the carriage. This Xiao will drive the carriage." "How could I dare to trouble Master?" Wang Bianfei's mother said very uneasily. "You are Wang Bianfei's master and also my savior." -12. Chapter 3483. Get on the carriage, no need to be polite. Xiao Hua took the reins and said unquestionably. Wang Bianfei's mother was helpless and could only climb onto the carriage. Wang Bianfei also nimbly jumped onto the carriage, but he didn't follow his mother into the canopy, but instead sat in front obediently. He. Xiao Hua looked at this unusually intelligent child and smiled. He also floated onto the carriage and sat down cross-legged. He skillfully shook the reins and shouted, "Jio." The carriage slowly moved towards the main road not far away. It was actually very obedient. The carriage started to move. Xiao Hua didn't even turn his head as he waved his left hand. Ah! Ah! The housekeeper's blood-curdling screams came out one after another. By the time the carriage reached the main road, the blood-curdling screams had already become hoarse and gradually stopped. "Master," Wang Bianfei whispered, "if the housekeeper's corpse is found in the morning, what should we do?" "It won't." Xiao Hua looked forward and said indifferently, "After half a cup of tea, not even his bones will be left. He will completely turn into a pool of black water." Sigh. Wang Bianfei sucked in a breath of cold air. The expression on his face was somewhat stiff. Xiao Hua glanced at Wang Bianfei and said indifferently, "What? Are you regretting it a little?" "No. I don't regret it." Wang Bianfei's face immediately turned red and he hurriedly shook his head. "I haven't said what I regret yet. How do you know you don't regret it?" Xiao Hua asked again. "Master." At this time, Wang Bianfei's mother spoke from behind. "This morning, I heard Little Four talk about the situation in his dream. Is everything in it true? Does Master have the ability to transcend heaven and earth?" Xiao Hua was stunned and nodded. "Yes, everything in Wang Bianfei's dream was done by me. Even on a normal day, I can also do it. Since that's the case, can Grandmaster also fly with me and Little Four?" "Of course." Xiao Hua already understood what Wang Bianfei's mother wanted to say and replied with a smile. "Son, why don't you think about it? Why can Master fly with you and your mother? Why must we sit in this carriage?" Didn't master say to let mother and the boy rest in the carriage? Wang Bianfei asked in confusion. Master can fly, so where can't he take us to rest? Why must we do it in the carriage? Boy, I don't know. Wang Yifei was at a loss. Xiao Hua smiled and said, let's not talk about it, we'll know when the time comes. Oh right, Wang Bianfei, tell me, how did you dream of the little monk? Master, call him Little Four. This is his nickname. Master keeps calling him Wang Bianfei. This concubine feels that you are treating him as an outsider. Wang Bianfei's mother hurriedly said. He, good. Xiao Hua readily agreed. Then, Wang Yifei told her how he dreamed of the little monk and everything that had happened. The night slowly deepened. The sound of horse hooves, the creaking of the carriage, and the child's clear voice were like a happy song on the road. In the end, a child was still a child. As he spoke, he fell asleep on Xiao Hua's arm. Xiao Hua sent Wang Bianfei to the tent. Wang Bianfei's mother had already fallen asleep. It seemed that both of them were mentally and physically exhausted after the scare. Although they were excited just now, once they relaxed, they fell asleep easily. Xiao Hua didn't care about the carriage anymore. He trusted the reins and let the horse stroll on the road. He frowned and pondered over what Wang Bianfei had just said. This Wang Bianfei was very strange. Since he was young, he could dream of illusions. In that illusionary realm, he first met Ji Yunyan. Ji Yunyan was frightened in the illusionary realm and was abnormally depressed. After seeing Wang Bianfei, he was naturally wild with joy and played with Wang Bianfei very happily. Just before Xiao Hua entered the illusionary realm, there was also a Confucian disciple who entered the illusionary realm. However, that Confucian disciple was not as lucky as Xiao Hua. He gradually got lost in the illusionary realm and never escaped again. As for Wang Bianfei, after hearing Ji Yunyan talk about the terror of the illusion, he never dared to walk into the depths of the illusion. Therefore, when he saw Xiao Hua in the illusion that day, Wang Bianfei said so many things that Xiao Hua couldn't understand. As for the illusion that Xiao Hua entered, it was naturally the illusion in his heart. This illusion just so happened to be entangled with Wang Bianfei's dream. This allowed Xiao Hua to have the strange matter of accepting a disciple in his dream. What surprised Xiao Hua even more was that Wang Bianfei clearly remembered the cultivation techniques and so on that he taught Wang Bianfei in the illusion. If it weren't for the fact that he couldn't sense the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, he would probably be able to cultivate immediately. Alas, it's really infuriating to compare oneself to others. Previously, I felt that Liu Yi was very smart. However, compared to this Wang Bianfei, Liu Yi is slightly inferior. Xiao Hua said with a somewhat bitter smile. Of course, perhaps it's Wang Bianfei's unknown talent that created his intelligence. In the future, if this talent can be used for cultivation, then he'll be even more of a prodigy in my Dao Sec. Actually, looking at Wang Bianfei's situation, it's more suitable for him to cultivate Confucian cultivation. However, no matter if he cultivates Daoist cultivation techniques or Confucian cultivation techniques, I can teach him both. The problem is, should I bring them back to the hidden immortal continent? Xiao Hua was somewhat worried. If I bring them back, how? Put them in the Qiankuan bag. If I bring them to the hidden immortal continent, how should I explain it to them? Wouldn't others know that I appeared in the western land of ultimate bliss? But if I don't bring them back, how will I settle them down? The night passed very quickly. When the sky started to brighten, Wang Bianfei and his mother woke up. Xiao Hua took out 2 spirit jujubes and let them eat it. After another half an hour, when the sky was bright and there was actually a caravan of merchants passing by behind them, Xiao Hua let Wang Bianfei and his mother get off the carriage while he drove the carriage to negotiate with the caravan of merchants. He used the carriage and horses to exchange for a few taels of silver. Seeing Xiao Hua walking back with large strides, Wang Bianfei immediately stepped forward and bowed. Master, disciple has come to apologize. Disciple gauged the heart of a gentleman with the yardstick of a villain and actually doubted Master. It was really disrespectful. No matter. Xiao Hua handed the silver to Wang Bianfei's mother and said with a smile, "You are still young, maybe you didn't think it through thoroughly. In fact, There are some things that you don't need to force others to know. As long as you understand it, your heart can live with it, and can face the heavens magnanimously. Yes, disciple will remember, Wang Bianfei said sincerely. Let's go. Xiao Hua waved his big sleeve and covered the two of them. He said, the trivial matters are over, we should get down to business. Immediately, Xiao Hua took the two of them and flew to the nearby mountain peak. Wang Bianfei and his mother saw Xiao Hua's immortal method and unconsciously became excited. Their eyes looked left and right, very curious. Sister-in-law. Xiao Hua pointed to the distance with his finger and said with a smile, there is a cave over there, clean it up a bit and use it as your and Xiao Sai's residence. We will stay here for 3 days. I understand. When Wang Bianfei's mother heard this, she immediately understood. She hurriedly took some of her belongings and hurriedly left. Xiao Hua then beckoned to Wang Bianfei and said, Wang Bianfei, come here. Yes, master. Wang Bianfei walked over and carefully answered. Sit down cross-legged, just like what master taught you before. Xiao Hua glanced at Wang Bianfei and instructed, then, according to the instructions of the technique, sense the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Wang Bianfei didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly sat down cross-legged and turned his palms towards the sky to sense. As Xiao Hua thought, Wang Bianfei and Liu Yi were very similar. Although they were already familiar with the technique, they couldn't sense the spiritual energy. In the following 2 days, Xiao Hua taught the other techniques one by one. Wang Bianfei understood them more easily than Liu Yi, but the result was the same as Liu Yi. Xiao Hua saw this and nodded slightly. He already understood something. He waved his hand and took out the soul bridge. He said, Wang Bianfei, close your eyes. No matter what you feel in a while, don't resist. Let master help you take a look. Yes, master. After seeing the technique taught by Xiao Hua, Wang Bianfei no longer had any doubts about Xiao Hua. He answered and immediately closed his eyes. Xiao Hua threw the soul bridge in his hand. A dark green light flashed between his eyebrows. Countless soul strands stretched out from the magic eye imprint. As soon as these soul strands appeared, they immediately vibrated violently. An indescribable whimpering sound came from between Xiao Hua's eyebrows. It sounded quite creepy. Following the trembling of these soul strands, strands of misty green light flashed out layer by layer. These strands of green light touched the soul bridge with the soul strands and also fell on the soul bridge. The bone ball that was originally quietly floating in the air began to slowly rotate. As the soul strands fell, the green light on the bone ball began to become dazzling. However, the bone ball's rotation was still relatively slow, as if Xiao Hua's soul force wasn't enough. After a full half cup of tea's time, a crisp catcher sound was heard. It was like the sound of a copper lock being opened. The bone ball suddenly sped up. Waves of buzzing sounds could be heard. Moreover, this sound was very rhythmic. In another moment, the entire outer layer of the bone ball completely transformed into a layer of dark green light. Xiao Hua's expression was very serious as he waved the soul strands and drove the bone ball to fly between Wang Bianfei's eyebrows. Xiao Hua's eyes didn't blink as he stared closely at the bone ball. When the bone ball touched Wang Bianfei's eyebrows, the skin that came in contact with it was instantly dyed dark green. Xiao Hua stopped and took a deep breath. He slightly composed himself before urging it again. When the outer layer of the bone ball easily entered, a happy expression appeared on Xiao Hua's face. Although Xiao Hua already knew about the soul technique used to control soul tools, this was the first time he was actually using it. Especially this kind of soul technique that didn't hurt people, Xiao Hua couldn't help but be a little nervous. The soul bridge entered Wang Bianfei's mind. Without Xiao Hua's control, it slowly moved inside. It didn't take long for it to arrive at the mysterious dark clouds. However, Wang Bianfei's mysterious dark clouds were much weaker than Xiao Hua's. Not only were the heavenly patterns and earth deeds on the dark clouds not obvious, the dark clouds also flickered slightly as if they were breathing. -12. Chapter 3484. At this moment, the layer of green on the soul bridge had already disappeared. Only the white bones on the outer layer of the soul bridge could be seen slowly rotating. This rotation was very strange. The outermost bone balls were not rotating in one direction. Instead, part of them were rotating in one direction while the other part was rotating in another direction. This layer of bone balls was actually divided into 9 directions. Xiao Hua urged his soul strands to carefully touch Wang Bifei's mysterious dark clouds. Rumble. A loud sound rang out. Under the attack of the tiny lightning strands, the heavenly pattern and earth deed on the surface of the dark clouds also faintly flickered, doing its best to resist the bone balls from entering. Under the attack of the lightning strands, the entire surface of the bone balls was in contact with the dark clouds. Ka. Another slight movement. The outer layer of the bone balls suddenly stopped. And at the same time, the lightning strands and the heavenly pattern and earth deed also disappeared. Good. Xiao Hua was overjoyed. Knowing that the soul bridge was effective, his soul strands pushed the soul bridge slightly. As expected, the outermost layer of the soul bridge did not move. Inside, a slightly smaller bone ball was pushed out and entered the mysterious dark clouds. Seeing the lightning strands and the heavenly pattern and earth deed of the mysterious dark clouds reappear, Xiao Hua hurriedly urged his soul strands again. Another vibration was released, and the smaller bone ball's outer layer started to rotate again. Like this, the 18th layer of the soul armament was pushed into the bone layer and a bridge-like passageway appeared in the dark clouds. Soul bridge, it really lives up to its name. Xiao Hua could not help but exclaim in admiration. Although he currently felt extremely tired and the space between his eyebrows was unusually swollen, he still laughed in his heart. With the help of this soul bridge, soul cultivators can directly use soul techniques on the mysterious dark cloud. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua sighed again. It's a pity that this Xiao does not know how to repair the mysterious dark clouds. Otherwise, Cai Zhuoxia could be revived. The thought of reviving Cai Zhuoxia flashed through his mind. Soon after, Xiao Hua's soul strands entered the soul bridge and looked at the place where he came out of the spiritual energy sky. Ayo, what's wrong? Why is this place different from this Xiao's spiritual energy sky? When his soul thread entered, it was blocked by a layer of thick and heavy membrane. Xiao Hua couldn't help but be shocked. Immediately after, Xiao Hua's consciousness followed the soul strand and entered the back of Wang Bianfei's head. Once the Jade Archive Xiao Hua entered Wang Bianfei's body, it immediately recovered Xiao Hua's appearance. Moreover, a very powerful hostility surged from all directions, making Xiao Hua have a kind of feeling of being unable to move an inch. Xiao Hua knew that this was Wang Bianfei's instinctive rejection of him. Although he had already instructed Wang Bianfei not to resist, those instructions were useless. This kind of rejection was innate. Wang. Without any other choice, Xiao Hua could only urge his soul strands once again. Layers of green light covered Xiao Hua's mind, blocking the aura of his mind. Only then did the hostility gradually decrease. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Xiao Hua's consciousness hurriedly entered the soul bridge. He saw that inside the soul bridge was a revolving passage, just like the soul cultivators that Xiao Hua had seen in the past. However, the method of opening the soul bridge was the same. The revolving of this passage was very chaotic, and he couldn't find any pattern at all. When Xiao Hua passed through the soul bridge and saw the entrance of the spiritual energy sky, a transparent restriction flashing with countless starlight, Xiao Hua was stupefied. How is this possible? Wang Bianfei is only a child less than 10 years old, who would seal him? Could it be that he has a background like this Xiao? But that's not right. Even if this Xiao has some background, this Xiao's spiritual energy sky doesn't have this layer of seal. Moreover, this layer of seal looks very strange, it actually uses star power. The cultivators in these 3 continents who can use star power. I'm afraid there are very few, right? Who would go against this child? Xiao Hua stood under the seal, his face cloudy and uncertain. He really didn't expect that a disciple he casually accepted would have such a great background. It was no wonder that a child who was less than 10 years old could connect the dreamland with the ancient formation at the bottom of the Sage River and the illusory formation of the demonic spirit. If Xiao Hua hadn't advanced to the nascent soul stage, He might have hesitated, but now, his pride as a grandmaster made him unable to hesitate. Since he had accepted Wang Bianfei as his nominal disciple, this so-called nominal disciple was still a disciple. Xiao Hua definitely wouldn't give up on Wang Bianfei just because he might have some hidden great enemy. In particular, after obtaining the demonic saber from the profound water palace, Xiao Hua still hadn't carefully studied the demonic saber, and he didn't have any extra primordial spirit to refine the demonic saber. However, the demonic saber's demonic spirit was being devoured by Xiao Hua. If possible, Xiao Hua was prepared to take drastic measures like Xin Xin. He would control the demonic spirit himself and use it to refine the demonic saber. In this way, it would be 100 times easier than refining the demonic saber himself. Xiao Hua even wanted to use the demonic spirit to cultivate the blood drop paradise and take control of his bloodline. With the demonic saber as his trump card, Xiao Hua was confident that if he met an opponent at the spirit severing stage or above, he would have the strength to fight. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua stretched out his hand and touched that thin layer of seal with his finger. Boom! Like the afterimages of 10,000 stars, a scene of a primordial star shattering rushed towards Xiao Hua's mind. Immediately after, a suffocating pressure smashed towards Xiao Hua's finger from the seal. Hiss! Xiao Hua didn't dare to be careless. He hastily retracted his finger, and the reaction on the seal disappeared. The afterimages of the 10,000 stars once again turned into specks of starlight on the seal. Xiao Hua's mind returned to its original position under the protection of the soul strand. Xiao Hua unconsciously frowned and pondered for a moment before waking Wang Bianfei up. He looked into Wang Bianfei's eyes and said word by word, "Wang Bianfei, Master has something to tell you." "Master, please speak." Wang Bianfei's eyes revealed a trace of disappointment. He thought that Xiao Hua was going back on his words because he couldn't sense the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Xiao Hua very keenly felt Wang Bianfei's uneasiness and said with a smile, "Don't be nervous. What Master wants to say is that there's something strange in your body. It seems, it's a kind of restriction placed on you by someone else. Master is going to break it. Although this restriction is powerful, with Master's strength, it should be easy to break it. However, I still have to tell you and ask for your consent." "Ah! Master, why is it like this?" Wang Bianfei was so shocked that he couldn't close his mouth. Disciple grew up in a village. The furthest I went was Pingxi City. Disciple can't have offended anyone, right? Could it be, Disciple rashly entered the illusion and offended the little monk's enemy? Saying this, Wang Bianfei's face showed regret. Xiao Hua shook his head and said, "It should be different from what you think. However, Master doesn't know the specifics. I can only take one step at a time. What if I don't break it?" Wang Bianfei blinked his eyes and asked, "If you don't break this restriction, your little life is in the hands of that person. That person can find you at any time." Xiao Hua replied without the slightest hesitation, "Moreover, this layer of restriction seems to be blocking you from perceiving the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Of course, it's only seems. Master can't be completely sure. I can only know after I break the restriction." "Mother." Hearing that the matter was so serious, Wang Bianfei hurriedly turned his head and wanted to call his mother to make a decision. "Hey, Wang Bianfei, now that you've grown up, it's also time for you to make your own decisions." Xiao Hua waved his hand and said with a smile, "That day when you were in the Wang family, you handled everything decisively and nimbly. Why didn't you think too much when you were by your mother's side?" "Master." Wang Bianfei said embarrassedly, "Mother wasn't by my side, so Disciple naturally had to handle things by myself. However, with Mother by my side, all of Disciple's matters were handled by Mother. She only let Disciple paint. After a few times, Disciple got used to it. Last time in the Wang family, Disciple was anxious, so Disciple took the risk. You also know that when I came back, I was scolded by Mother." Xiao Hua sighed slightly. That day, he had the thought of taking Wang Bianfei as his disciple, not only because of his intelligence, but also because of his filial piety and his decisiveness in handling matters. However, he didn't expect that he only saw one side of Wang Bianfei. He didn't see the side of Wang Bianfei that was doted on by his mother. Or perhaps, that was what Wang Bianfei didn't want to be seen in his dreams. Alas, sometimes, love is also a kind of burden. Xiao Hua couldn't help but think of the silent Jiang Liuer in the space. Immediately, his expression became serious and he asked, Wang Bianfei, do you know what a cultivator is? No, I don't know. Wang Bianfei's face was slightly red, and he said in a low voice, Disciple only heard this from the little monk. Although Disciple envied their carefree and magical abilities, Disciple didn't hear others mention the specific. Then, Master will tell you. Xiao Hua nodded and said, simply speaking, the so-called cultivator is a cultivator who transcends mortals. In this world, there are the 3 sects of Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism, as well as a few other cultivation paths. Cultivators emphasize on cultivation and cultivation. No matter what kind of cultivation method it is completely different from the way you live. Not to mention the methods and strength you yearn for, even lifespan and feelings are also different. At this point, Xiao Hua was somewhat at a loss for words. He didn't know how to talk about cultivation with a 10-year-old child like Wang Bianfei. Compared to Liu Yi, Wang Bianfei's experience was still far behind. However, looking at Wang Bianfei's clear gaze, Xiao Hua smiled. Although his own memory wasn't complete, he already vaguely knew his own origin. Since he was young, he wasn't as ignorant as Wang Bianfei, but didn't he also cultivate to such a realm? A person's fate was the most miraculous. Who could say that Wang Bianfei, a child who hadn't experienced wind and rain, couldn't grow into a towering tree? Master, what's the difference? Master, please teach me. Wang Bianfei saw that Xiao Hua paused, and asked very obediently. Xiao Hua replied, Oh, let's not talk about other things. Previously, you've also seen 1 or 2 of Master's methods. Master isn't afraid to tell you that it's nothing more than an ordinary person walking. Master still has many magical abilities that you can't even dream of. How about this? To put it simply, Master will ask you, how old do you think Master is? -12. Chapter 3485. Master. Wang Bianfei looked at Xiao Hua and said without any hesitation, Master looks like he's in his 20s, but Disciple heard from the little monk that he's 300 years old. Master is much more powerful than him, so you're at least 500 years old, right? Damn. Xiao Hua originally wanted to teach him a lesson, but he was immediately exposed, so he could only say embarrassedly, this little monk is bragging a bit, he's only around 200 years old. However, I'm afraid I'm about the same age as the little monk, probably around 200 years old. Really, Master? Wang Bianfei's eyes widened, you really can't tell. Hihi, Master mentioned this to tell you, you're about to become a cultivator. Your age won't just be 500 years old, you might even be 5,000 or 50,000 years old. You have to always remember to be independent, even in front of your mother, you have to be independent. Yes, Master. Wang Bianfei was anxious and shouted, Disciple understands, Disciple will definitely change, Disciple won't let mother care about Disciple anymore, it doesn't matter. At this moment, Xiao Hua had already understood, he smiled and waved his hand, you don't have to be so deliberate. Your mother taking care of everything for you is also a kind of love. She also watched you grow up day by day, she knows that you don't need her care more and more. She can keep this life, every day is a day of enjoyment, you don't have to force her to let go, just let her slowly adapt. What's more special is that your mother is immortal. There will come a day when her lifespan will run out. This period of time is extremely short in your life as a cultivator. Being able to enjoy a bit of familial love is also a bit of warmth. But, Master, Wang Bianfei said anxiously, the little monk said that if you want to become a senior monk and become a person with great magical powers, you have to cut off your worldly ties, only then can you focus on Buddha, don't listen to that little monk's nonsense. Xiao Hua originally wanted to teach Wang Bianfei like this, but he changed his mind at this moment, we're Dao sect, yes, Fortune Gate's disciples, we control the fortune of the world, cutting off our worldly ties, shaving our heads and becoming a monk, that's a matter for monks. Besides, that little monk's heart misses his own brother, He doesn't have the qualifications to say anything about cutting off worldly ties. Yes, I understand. Wang Bianfei beamed with joy and probed, Master, you know Master Jiyuzhen? I know. Xiao Hua nodded. Master Guzhen will be going with me this time. What about Master Jiyuzhen? I heard from the little monk that Great Master Jiyuzhen possesses remarkable abilities and is the #1 Buddhist expert. Wang Bianfei said. He was still concerned about the little monk Jiyunyan. Xiao Hua smiled, but didn't expose him. Grandmaster Guzhen is indeed formidable. This time, it was all thanks to him that Master and the others were able to escape. In the end, Master Guzhen met the little monk Gunnyan. In order to accompany the little monk, Guzhen didn't come out of the illusion. Both of them were reborn as humans. Ah! Wang Yifei was shocked. Both of them are dead. Yes. Actually, this little monk isn't human. Xiao Hua nodded. He did have a chance to survive, but just like his brother, he couldn't bear to. So he went with him. What a pitiful, adorable, and amiable little monk. Wang Bianfei's heart was somewhat heavy. Forget it, let's not talk about others. Xiao Hua waved his hand. You rest for a while and discuss with your mother. It won't be too late to make a decision after that. No need to ask mother. Disciple will make the decision on cultivation. Wang Bianfei hurriedly said, Mother doesn't know how to cultivate. You'd better go and tell her. Xiao Hua smiled and rubbed Wang Bianfei's head. After all, she is your mother who loves and dotes on you. If you suddenly become independent, your mother will be disappointed. Yes, disciple understands. Wang Bianfei smiled cutely. Disciple will tell mother that I will be back immediately. Okay, Xiao Hua agreed. He folded his arms and looked at the clouds floating in the distant sky. His thoughts seemed to have run to Lu Town. Not long after, Wang Bianfei ran back cheerfully. Behind him, although his mother's figure was hidden in the shadow of the cave, Xiao Hua could clearly see her worried expression. Master, disciple has finished talking to mother. Wang Bianfei ran to Xiao Hua and shouted, Mother said that you will listen to me in the future. What are you eating? Xiao Hua asked with a smile. It's the dates that Master gave mother. Mother said that she couldn't finish them and left them for me to eat. Wang Bianfei replied with some embarrassment. Disciple knows that mother was reluctant and wanted to leave them for disciple. Disciple didn't want to eat them, but thinking about what Master said just now, disciple still accepted them. Good. Xiao Hua nodded. He knew that Wang Bianfei was intelligent. He only needed to mention a lot of things and he would understand. Then, he pointed to the distant sky and said, You also come and look. Try to integrate yourself with the sky, or think that your mind is as big as the sky. No need, Master. Wang Bianfei blinked his eyes and said, This is what disciple often played with when I was young. Xiao Hua was somewhat stunned. He asked curiously, You often looked at the sky when you were young? Yes. Wang Bianfei nodded. When disciple was young, father often pointed to the sky and told disciple that the sky was the most difficult thing to draw in the world. What incomparably clear, what storm, what continuous rain, they were all carved in the sky. Disciple often looked at the sky when he had nothing to do. Especially later, father died. Disciple missed father very much, so disciple liked to look at the sky even more. When disciple saw the sky, it was as if disciple saw father's face. All troubles and pain would disappear. Genius, has always been a coincidence. Xiao Hua was speechless. He waved his hand and said with a bitter smile, Forget it, just pretend that Master didn't say anything. Yes, Master. Wang Bianfei went back to his original place and sat down cross-legged, saying, Master, you can do whatever you want. Disciple is already prepared. Good. Xiao Hua saw that Wang Bianfei's expression was as solemn as an adult's. He nodded slightly and brought out his soul bridge. After communicating with Wang Bianfei's mysterious dark cloud, a green light flashed between Xiao Hua's eyebrows. After that green light became dense, 2 thumb-sized green seal characters Purify and Purify appeared from the green light. Once these 2 green seal characters appeared, the entire mountain peak immediately lit up. Nearby, a bright green light appeared and enveloped the entire mountain peak. Xiao Hua didn't have time to carefully observe the change in the sky. He urged the two green seal characters to enter between Wang Bianfei's eyebrows. The two green seal characters smoothly passed through the soul bridge and entered the mysterious dark cloud. When the two green seal characters disappeared, the entire mountain peak seemed to follow them and rushed towards Wang Bianfei's eyebrows. Some of the green light disappeared into Wang Bianfei's body, but many gathered around Wang Bianfei's head. Looking inside the mysterious dark cloud, the two green seal characters emitted the sound of flowing water. Hua hua, they slowly turned into hundreds of even smaller green seal characters. Then, near the restriction, there was a loud sound of purify and purify. Those tiny green seal characters seemed to be washing over the restriction. Swoosh swoosh. The green seal script, which was even more powerful than a waterfall, flew upwards and landed on the restriction. The restriction instantly loosened and turned into the 10,000 stars that Xiao Hua had seen before, which flew towards the green seal script. Rumble. A series of muffled sounds rang out. Wang Bianfei's head violently trembled, even his entire body was shaking. Hold on. Xiao Hua hurriedly supported Wang Bianfei's shoulder with one hand and pressed Wang Bianfei down. Wang Bianfei was originally panicking, but when Xiao Hua's hand fell, his expression immediately relaxed. Woo-woo. At this moment, the entire mountain peak's wind and clouds changed. The originally clear sky was suddenly covered with dark clouds. Xiao Hua broke Wang Bianfei's restriction and actually caused a change in the sky. Good. This Xiao wants to see what kind of expert is coming. Xiao Hua also steeled his heart. The green light between his eyebrows reappeared and another two green seal characters fell between Wang Bianfei's eyebrows. Boom. Like the opening of the sky, a large hole appeared in the dark clouds that had just gathered. Inside the hole in the clouds, there was a dark blue starry sky. A faint starlight fell from the hole in the clouds and landed on the top of Wang Bianfei's head. Star Force. It really is Star Force. Xiao Hua's eyes slightly narrowed. He took the time to open his transcendence vision and looked at the invisible light pillar that seemed to reach the sky. Inside the light pillar, fluorescent light danced and a kind of desolate aura wreaked havoc in this fluorescent light. Rumble. Another strong wave of shaking. Wang Bianfei's head was somewhat crooked as if it had been hit by a heavy hammer. A trace of blood even flowed out from his nostrils. Master. Wang Bianfei didn't dare to open his eyes. He reached out and used his small hand to grab Xiao Hua's hand that was placed on his shoulder. Don't worry, disciple. Xiao Hua had a card up his sleeve and said indifferently, it will be done very soon. As he spoke, Xiao Hua raised his head and looked at the source of the starlight. There was no strange movement. Only then did he relax. Green light flashed between his eyebrows. The cleansing heaven purifying earth technique was used again. Several green seal characters attracted even more green light to fall between Wang Bianfei's eyebrows. Not only did it cover up the starlight, it also made Wang Bianfei's face show a kind of flirtatious green color. Looking at the layer of restriction inside Wang Bianfei's mysterious dark cloud, Xiao Hua didn't use all his strength to break it. Because of the replenishment of the starlight, countless starlight poured in and turned into stars that attacked the green seal characters that were like dancing butterflies. That seemingly weak restriction actually showed a vast aura. However, when Xiao Hua went all out, even more green seal characters rushed into the seal. The flying green seal characters immediately transformed into jade-green giants. Each of the giants had the power to crush stars with their palms. With a raise of their hands, countless stars were reduced to dust. The stars were shattered and there was no star force to replenish them. It looked like this restriction was about to be broken. Rumble. At the final crucial moment, the light and shadow in the starry sky changed greatly. Amidst the stellar transposition, the powerful starlight was like a heavenly river that suddenly poured out and rushed into the light pillar. -12. Chapter 3486. Not good. Xiao Hua was very sensitive to the power of the starlight. He knew that once the starlight fell, Wang Bianfei's seal would definitely frantically counterattack and even recover in an instant. Everything he did before would be in vain. In a hurry, Xiao Hua really didn't know how to deal with the starlight. He unconsciously frowned and said, what should we do? Suddenly, as if the pain was unbearable, Wang Bianfei's right hand, which was holding Xiao Hua, began to tremble. The joints of her small hand turned white, and more blood flowed out from Wang Bianfei's nostrils and ears. Xiao Hua clenched his teeth and steeled his heart. Black qi flourished from his left arm and he immediately raised his left hand. That originally white left hand instantly turned into a pitch-black demonic blade. Swish! Along with a wave of the demonic blade, a pitch-black demonic qi flashed and the entire starlight was split into two. Moreover, the dense demonic qi turned into tiny demons that bared their fangs and brandished their claws and devoured the starlight. At the same time, the originally dense starlight became even denser. The starlight was like a heavy star that smashed the tiny demons into pieces. Cleanse Purify Xiao Hua waved the demonic blade. The demonic qi in his body was swept clean and he could no longer control the demonic blade. His left arm powerlessly hung down. Taking advantage of the gap where the demonic qi blocked the starlight, Xiao Hua once again used the cleansing heaven purifying earth technique. Even more green seal characters fell between Wang Bianfei's eyebrows, Hong. Like a muffled sound of a thunderclap in a clear sky, but also like a clap of thunder tearing apart the heavy clouds, the jade light on Wang Bianfei's head dispersed. The seal within the mysterious dark clouds was finally swept clean by Xiao Hua's cleansing heaven purifying earth technique, and the starlight falling from the starry sky immediately disappeared without a trace. Even the cloud hole high in the sky also disappeared in an instant. Sigh, I finally succeeded. Xiao Hua's eyebrows also produced a kind of indescribable soreness. Then, a pain comparable to his head splitting emerged from his mysterious dark clouds. Hiss. However, before Xiao Hua could take a breath of cold air, a layer of multicolored light suddenly appeared in the sky where the clouds and stars had stopped. This multicolored light was like a heavenly flower, but also like a rainbow. It covered the entire horizon. Then, this multicolored light poured down like a waterfall. Bursts of lightning and thunder were born. The sky that was clear a moment ago was densely covered by red clouds and actually, snowflakes. What kind of celestial phenomenon is this? Xiao Hua turned pale in fright. Is the origin of the seal on Wang Bianfei's body is really extraordinary? Rumble. Just as lightning flashed and thunder rumbled high up in the sky, within Xiao Hua's Niwen Palace, within the Buddha relic that was hidden within the Linglong Pagoda and was unaffected by the outside world, a thunderous sound similarly rang out. Xiao Hua was even more alarmed. He hastily sent his mind into his Niwen Palace. He saw the Buddha Surya that came out of the exquisite pagoda flickering with a similar brilliance. This brilliance was different from the Buddha aura. It emitted a kind of holy milky white light. This brilliance was like a river that slowly flowed into the Buddha Surya's heart. At the heart, the Buddha fire began to sway like a heartbeat. The golden threads inside became increasingly exuberant. Unfortunately, even if it was Jade Archive Xiao Hua now, he could only see a faint milky white brilliance emerging from the void. It slowly flowed into the Buddha Surya's heart like a dense fog. He was absolutely unable to see the golden threads inside the Buddha fire, just like how Xiao Hua didn't know what it meant when he broke the seal on Wang Bianfei's spiritual aura sky. He also didn't know what the 10 colors that filled the sky were. Perhaps not long after, Xiao Hua would realize that he broke the seal and opened a new chapter of Hidden Immortal Continent, Western Paradise, and Xiaoyu Continent's Daoist sect's spiritual root cultivation. Perhaps Xiao Hua would obtain a lot of merit and faith power because of this. But he could only wait for a very, very, very long time, until he cultivated to a height that he couldn't reach even in his dreams. Only then would he truly understand what he had uncovered. At this moment, Xiao Hua couldn't see this inexplicable scene. When his mind came out of his Niwen Palace, he saw Wang Bianfei's complexion turning yellow. He had actually fainted on his arm. The remaining bloodstains covered his ears, lips, and his clothes were also stained quite a bit. Sigh. This Xiao was a bit impetuous. Xiao Hua was a bit regretful in his heart. He reached out his hand to touch Wang Bianfei's forehead. However, when his finger touched Wang Bianfei's skin, he stopped. He knew that if he forcefully woke Wang Bianfei up, it wouldn't be good for Wang Bianfei to wake up on his own. Thus, he simply pulled his hand back and used his hand to grab some water stains. He carefully washed Wang Bianfei's face and other places. While washing, Xiao Hua's hand very naturally touched Wang Bianfei's hair. That hair actually floated down along with Xiao Hua's hand. Xiao Hua let out a sound and used his hand to pull. Wang Bianfei's hair all fell down without a single strand remaining. Moreover, there was actually a layer of purple sticky substance on his scalp. The corner of Xiao Hua's mouth curled up. He wiped away the floating hair and sticky substance. Then, he carried Wang Bianfei's slightly light body and walked towards the cave. Wang Bianfei slept for 3 days and 3 nights. When he woke up, it was already noon. Xiao Hua was sitting cross-legged on a mountain peak with his eyes closed in meditation. Wang Bianfei's head was bald. It looked like he was truly Xiao Hua's master and disciple. However, there was a kind of joy on his face. He walked behind Xiao Hua and quietly stood there, not daring to make a sound. Bianfei, Xiao Hua didn't open his eyes and said in a low voice, "How do you feel now? Or is there something wrong?" Reporting to master, Wang Bianfei heard his master being so intimate. The joy on his face became even stronger. He said respectfully, "This disciple feels like he suddenly understood a lot. Everything in the world has a kind of feeling of seeing through everything." Or it could be said that previously, this disciple's heart was like being covered in lard. Master used a spell on this disciple's body and wiped away the lard. This disciple feels incomparably refreshed. That's good. Xiao Hua's face was still calm. You suffered a lot. It's naturally worth it to be able to benefit from it. Master, the fragrance of plum blossoms comes from the bitter cold. A treasured sword's edge is sharpened. This disciple didn't study much, but this disciple still understands this kind of shallow logic. Wang Bianfei said with a smile. Sit down. Try to see if you can sense the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. With a wave of his hand, Xiao Hua swept away a large area of gravel, revealing a clean area. Hehe, thank you master. Wang Bianfei knew that his master doted on him. He jumped to that clean area and sat down cross-legged. In just a moment, his little face revealed a pleasant surprise. He shouted, "Master, you're really godly. This disciple can sense the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Great." Xiao Hua clapped his hands and smiled. He looked at the horizon and said, "Spiritual roots, spiritual roots. So this lost soul is the root of cultivation. Since this Xiao knows the use of spiritual roots, how can I not worry about the prosperity of the Dao sect? Even the withered cultivation sects in the Xiaoyu continent can still prosper, right?" Xiaoyu continent. Master, where is that? Wang Bianfei asked with a smile on his face. Hehe, that's a very, very far place. Wait until your cultivation is successful. Master will bring you to see it. Xiao Hua originally wanted to tell Wang Bianfei to hide the name of the Xiaoyu continent, but after thinking for a while, he replied with a smile. Good, good. This disciple has only been to Pingxi City in his life. In his dreams, he has been to Saint River. I have never been to other places. Wang Bianfei also clapped his hands and said happily like Xiao Hua. Hearing this, Xiao Hua's heart moved. He asked, "Do you know where this place is?" This place. This disciple doesn't know. Wang Bianfei was stunned. Then, forget it. Bianfei, go and call your mother over. Xiao Hua thought for a while and simply instructed. Wang Bianfei suddenly jumped up from the ground and shouted, "Yes, master." Then he ran away like a wisp of smoke. Looking at Wang Bianfei's lively appearance, Xiao Hua couldn't help but think of Liu Yi. Two similar brats together, they should be happier, right? He had no reason to leave Wang Bianfei and his mother in the land of ultimate bliss. Sister-in-law Tilda Xiao Hua saw Wang Bianfei's mother come over. Xiao Hua also became extremely polite. Great master. Wang Bianfei's mother hurriedly saluted and said, "This concubine is much younger than the great master. Please, call me." Speaking until here, Wang Bianfei's mother didn't know what to say. If he called her by her name, although she knew that Xiao Hua was someone who had lived for several hundred years, looking at Xiao Hua's appearance that was only around 20 years old, Wang Bianfei's mother really couldn't say it. Sister-in-law, you are Bianfei's mother and Bianfei is this Xiao's disciple. You and this Xiao can be considered to be of the same generation. This concubine doesn't dare. Wang Bianfei's mother replied in panic. Xiao Hua helplessly glared at Wang Bianfei. Wang Bianfei mischievously stuck out his tongue as an answer. Forget it, this Xiao will call you Wang Shi. Xiao Hua understood Wang Bianfei's mother's meaning and said while waving his hand. Speaking until here, Xiao Hua woke up again and hurriedly said, that's right, this one's surname is Xiao. I had told sister-in-law in my dream before. This Xiao had neglected it. Xiao Sai had mentioned the Great Master's surname before. However, if the Great Master didn't mention it, this concubine didn't dare to mention it. After all, monks don't talk about mortal matters. Wang Bianfei's mother hurriedly replied, however, Great Master, where did the Wang Shi that you mentioned come from? Xiao Hua stared blankly for a moment before smiling and waving his hand. Sister-in-law, you are wrong. This Xiao is not a monk and Bianfei will not be a monk in the future. If he were to dual cultivate and find a fairy, it is absolutely possible. As for calling sister-in-law Wang Shi, it is because this one doesn't know sister-in-law's name. However, since Bianfei's father is surnamed Wang, sister-in-law can also be called Wang Shi. Really? Obviously, Wang Bianfei didn't say these words to his mother. Hearing this, Wang Bianfei's mother was overjoyed. The worry that had been in her stomach for several days had already been thrown away. As for why she was called Wang Shi, she didn't really care. Of course. Xiao Hua nodded, this one is a cultivator of the Dao sect, not a monk. Sister-in-law doesn't need to call this one master. If you can call me Immortal Master or Old Master. -12. Chapter 3487. Yes, Master, this concubine understands. Wang Bianfei's mother was very satisfied, and very casually called out. When Xiao Hua heard this master, he couldn't help but think of the fat body of the Wang family's master. He smacked his lips, wanting to go back on his words. But when he thought of Liu Yi and the black bear spirit calling him master, if he said anything else, wouldn't Wang Bianfei and his mother also have to call them master in the future? Forget it. Wang Shi tilde Xiao Hua simply said, do you know the name of the land under your feet? Wang Shi was stunned, and didn't react for a long time. Looking at Wang Bianfei, she was somewhat hesitant, not understanding what Xiao Hua was asking. Xiao Hua didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and simply asked, do you know the name of the big river next to you? Buddha River? Wang Shi finally spoke. That Buddha River, on which continent? Xiao Hua asked again. Continent? What is a continent? Wang Shi seemed to have fallen into the clouds. Xiao Hua looked at Wang Bianfei and smiled. Bianfei, have you heard the little monk mention it before? No. Wang Bianfei was also at a loss. How about this? This Xiao wants to bring all of you to a place where this Xiao's other disciples are. However, all of you can't say that you live by the Buddha River. Also, all of you can't say that you've seen many monks. Xiao Hua thought for a moment before instructing. Wang Shi nodded, this concubine understands. Actually, this concubine has never seen many monks. As for this Buddha River, this concubine will say that it is a big river. There are also many big rivers left and right. Good. Xiao Hua already understood in his heart, this Wang Shi should be the same as Wang Bianfei. The furthest they went was some Pingxi city. In their hearts, they didn't have the concept of pure land and hidden immortal continent. Even, their village was really remote, even the temples were rarely seen. It was no different from hidden immortal continent. The only thing that Xiao Hua was worried about was this Saint River. Whether it was the Buddha River or the Saint River, this name would make people associate it with paradise. Wang Bianfei's origin was nothing to Liu Yi and the others, but Xiao Hua faintly felt that his Buddha Sariya, his identity as the future Buddha Lord, and even the Buddha fruit of Guanyin Bodhisattva should be separated from his identity as the successor of the Dao sect. It was best to hide the fact that he came to the Western Paradise through the space vein. Therefore, Xiao Hua initially did not plan to bring Wang Bianfei back to the hidden immortal continent. However, after thinking about it, Wang Bianfei and his mother were orphans and widows. Although they were not eye-catching in the Western Paradise, Wang Bianfei had cultivated Dao techniques after all. If something happened to him, wouldn't it be his fault? Finally, Xiao Hua decided to bring them back to the hidden immortal continent. However, after instructing Wang Bianfei and Wang Shi for a while, Xiao Hua felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't remember what it was. All right, Bianfei, Wang Shi, this Xiao will bring you along. However, during this period, you have to have a good sleep. When you wake up, you will go to a new place. There, you don't have to worry about being bullied by others. Moreover, Bianfei, you will also have senior brothers to cultivate with. Xiao Hua first asked Wang Shi about the direction of Pingxi City, then said to Wang Bianfei and Wang Shi, "Thank you, Master." When Wang Shi heard that Xiao Hua only had 3 days, she was also worried. After marrying to this village, she had never left. She really didn't know how to live after leaving her hometown. Now that she heard that Xiao Hua was going to bring them along, she was so happy that she almost knelt down and kowtowed. Ayo. Hearing Wang Shi's grateful voice, Xiao Hua suddenly understood that he had overlooked a point. That was, the language of the Western Paradise was completely different from the language of the hidden immortal continent. When Wang Bianfei and Wang Shi arrived at the hidden immortal continent, as long as they opened their mouth, they would definitely be exposed. However, if Wang Bianfei and Wang Shi were to start learning the language of the hidden immortal continent now, Xiao Hua felt that he wouldn't have such good patience. Moreover, he also didn't know how long it would take for Wang Shi to learn it. He couldn't possibly waste his time here. Forget it. When we arrive at the Black Wind Ridge, let Liu Yi teach them. Xiao Hua sighed slightly. Doing anything in this world was absolutely not easy. Wanting to conceal anything was even more difficult. Immediately, Xiao Hua took out 2 fasting pills and handed them to the 2 people respectively, letting them consume it. With a wave of his hand, he sealed the 2 people's acupoints and sent them to a place in the space. Then, he rode on a cloud and flew towards Pingxi City. Xiao Hua's plan was extremely good, but he still neglected one thing, and that was Wang Bianfei's abnormal ability. In the space, Wang Bianfei was originally sleeping well. However, all of a sudden, his eyes rapidly moved. The breathing from his mouth and nose gradually became somewhat rhythmic. Even his hands, which were casually placed, gradually began to form seals. This was the Qi refining stage level 1 technique. Not long after, the spiritual light that was like sunlight gradually gathered around his body. Wang Bianfei's cultivation in his dream might not count as anything, but the problem was that in Xiao Hua's space, there was still the silent Jiang Liu. Jiang Liu's eyes had been moving day and night for more than 100 years. What kind of story would happen when the 2 people were in the same place? This time, Xiao Hua didn't fly in the wrong direction. After only half a day, he arrived at Pingxi City. As a bald little monk, Xiao Hua received a rare respect in Pingxi City. Not only were there people attentively giving alms, there were also kind benefactors who took the initiative to bring Xiao Hua to the east of the city to look for the not-too-famous Deity temple. However, when he arrived at Deity temple, Xiao Hua was in a bit of a predicament. The reception monk at the gate wanted to see Xiao Hua's identity certificate, but where did Xiao Hua have it? The reception monk's face was indifferent, even colder than the people of the secular world. He waved his hand and only said that without an identity certificate, he wasn't allowed to stay on the list, and he wasn't allowed to eat vegetarian food. If he wanted to eat, he could only go outside to beg for alms. Xiao Hua smiled. He smiled very happily. He really liked this reception monk who was straightforward enough. Only with this kind of person could the Taoist sect flourish. He couldn't wait to have more of this kind of people. Therefore, he didn't blame the reception monk and only said that he didn't need to stay on the list. He only needed to find their abbot and ask him something before leaving. It would have been better if Xiao Hua didn't say anything. Once he said that he wanted to see the abbot, The reception monk's face immediately showed a mocking smile. He asked Xiao Hua if he had an appointment with the abbot, and if he had any Buddhist identity certificate that other people brought. After all, how could the head of a temple be met so easily? In particular, the reception monk casually asked Xiao Hua if he knew the Dharma name of the abbot of Deity temple. Xiao Hua was even more speechless. Even if he brought out Ci Hui, the reception monk still waved his monk robe, indicating that he wanted to see the guest out. If it wasn't for the fact that Xiao Hua was also bald, perhaps he would have directly swept Xiao Hua out with a broom. Helpless, Xiao Hua could only release his Buddhist awareness, attracting the abbot of Deity temple, Xin Chan, to come out and very politely invite Xiao Hua into the temple. Under the reception monk's unsightly black face, Xiao Hua leisurely followed Xin Chan into the temple. However, just when the reception monk was extremely worried that he would be punished by the abbot, Xiao Hua once again flew out of Deity temple on a magic cloud under the guidance of a young monk. Xiao Hua really did ask one thing and then left. The reception monk didn't lie at all. This flight took several days. On this day, it was dusk again. A very wide river appeared in front of Xiao Hua's eyes. That river flowed under a cliff. On the side of that cliff, there was a very dilapidated ancient temple. There were many dark green ancient trees planted at the two ends of the ancient temple. At first glance, these ancient trees carried a thick shadow in the dusk. The entire ancient temple looked like a bat spreading its wings. Just as he saw the ancient temple, the monk leading the way stopped. He put his palms together and said, "Amitabha. Junior brother TPU, this is Jinshan Temple. The river under Jinshan Temple is called Chen River. This is also what I told you along the way. At the end of Chen River is Saint River. Jinshan Temple's great Zen master Ji Kong's temper is rather strange. Last time I came with my master to visit him, he didn't see us at all. This made my master lose face. Therefore, I won't accompany junior brother down. Junior brother, if you have any matters, cough cough, you must be prepared. Many thanks, senior brother Liao." Xiao Hua also put his palms together and thanked him. Liao Ming waved his hand and said, "No need to thank me, no need to thank me. Junior brother discussed Buddhism with me along the way and it really benefited me greatly. Back then, when martial uncle Ci Hui came to visit martial ancestor, I once listened from the side." The harvest of these few days is no less than that time. That's right, senior brother Liao Ming, Ci Hui. Is there any news? Xiao Hua held back from asking along the way. At this moment, he finally asked again. Liao Ming was puzzled. What news does martial uncle Ci Hui have? This. Xiao Hua thought for a moment and said, I also don't know. I haven't seen Ci Hui since I parted ways with him. Also, I want to ask again. If there is a senior in the Pure Land who has attained Bodhisattva Buddha fruit, how would we know? Attaining Bodhisattva Buddha fruit? Junior brother isn't joking, right? As far as I know, our Pure Land hasn't had a Buddha attaining Bodhisattva Buddha fruit for several tens of thousands of years. Oh, that's right, a few days ago in Xiaoyu continent, I heard that martial uncle Ci Hang almost attained Bodhisattva Buddha fruit. Liao Ming said with a smile. Cough cough, I mean that there is a person attaining Bodhisattva Buddha fruit. How would we know? Xiao Hua coughed and asked. When a bodhisattva attains Bodhisattva Buddha fruit, 10,000 monks congratulate him. If there is a bodhisattva attaining Bodhisattva Buddha fruit, there will definitely be a Buddhist bell ringing 64 times and the entire Pure Land will rejoice. Liao Ming said with a smile, then, this bodhisattva's Buddha seat will appear in Leiyin Temple. Then, Leiyin Temple will send out a small envoy to receive him. At the same time, it will emit Buddha's light to illuminate the entire Pure Land. Junior brother TPU, don't tell me you don't even know this. Dong, dong, dong. Just as Liao Ming looked at Xiao Hua with a smile, the Buddhist bell of Jinshan Temple in the distance suddenly rang. At the same time, even further away, the Buddhist bells of even more temples rang at the same time, one after another, one after another. Liao Ming was dumbfounded. He looked at Xiao Hua in disbelief and then at Jinshan Temple. After the 64 Buddhist bells rang, the entire Pure Land suddenly emitted a myriad of Buddha's light. It was as if the rising sun was shining on the earth and splashing in all directions. -12. Chapter 3488. T. Junior brother TPU, you. Who did you say achieved Bodhisattva Buddha fruit? Liao Ming was extremely surprised and looked at Xiao Hua with an inconceivable gaze. Xiao Hua naturally knew that this Buddha light was the Buddhist decree of Leiyin Temple. It was the news of Ci Hui achieving Bodhisattva Buddha fruit. He no longer concealed it and said with a smile, naturally, it's the news of Great Master Ci Hui. If senior brother doesn't believe it, you can quickly return to Deity Temple to take a look. Good, then this poor monk will take his leave. Hearing this, Liao Ming unconsciously became anxious. He put his palms together and hurriedly rushed towards the temple without waiting for Xiao Hua to return the greeting. After all, the addition of a new bodhisattva in the Pure Land world was a major event in tens of thousands of years. Not to mention the entire Pure Land world would celebrate, even every temple would organize a certain ceremony to celebrate. Xiao Hua didn't dare to be negligent. He still turned around and put his palms together to send Liao Ming off, thanking him for leading the way. When Liao Ming's voice disappeared, Xiao Hua raised his eyes and looked at the magnificent scenery of the Pure Land world. He secretly sighed in his heart. Although he didn't know how Ci Hui achieved Bodhisattva Buddha fruit, Xiao Hua could guess a thing or two from Guzhen's words. It should have something to do with the ancient Buddha fruit. My Dao sect has a secret technique to condense knowledge treasures. Buddhism sect has ancient Buddha fruit. The effect of condensing knowledge treasures is limited. It is useful for cultivators below nascent soul stage. This ancient Buddha fruit is extraordinary. It can directly allow people to achieve Bodhisattva Buddha fruit. Xiao Hua stood in the air and thought to himself, moreover, little monk Ci Hui. No, it should be Bodhisattva Nanwu Wisdom Bodhisattva Buddha fruit. Right now, he is only in the bright Buddha realm. His strength is somewhat similar to Dao sect's Jindan. Such a low level of cultivation can actually achieve Bodhisattva Buddha fruit. Either Bodhisattva Buddha fruit has nothing to do with strength, as I said to others before, or Bodhisattva Buddha fruit will greatly increase his strength and make up for the lack of cultivation. Also, Buddhism sect's cultivation is really mysterious. Karma, reincarnation, faith, and so on are all mysterious things. They can actually use them for cultivation. It seems. Buddhism sect is not simple. Since this Xiao has obtained the inheritance of the little exquisite temple, I should properly comprehend it and grasp the secrets within. Thinking up to this point, Xiao Hua turned around and was about to leave. But right at this moment, Xiao Hua was suddenly startled. Ayo, that's not right. There's something else. The cultivators of the Dao sect cultivate their entire lives to attain the Dao and become immortals. Once the cultivators of the Dao sect reach the peak of their cultivation in the mortal world, they will naturally be able to ascend. However, what is the purpose of the Arhat of the Buddhist sect? Didn't they want to achieve fruition? Now that Ci Hui had attained the Buddha fruit, why didn't he ascend? Could it be that the Buddha Lord and Bodhisattva of the Buddhism sect did not need to ascend? If she ascended, how could Ci Hui possibly ascend with her strength? The more he thought about it, the more chaotic Xiao Hua's heart became. There was actually some sweat on his forehead. In his heart, he vaguely felt that this was probably another great secret of the Buddhist sect. It was just like the strange phenomenon of heaven and earth after he broke the seal on Wang Biafei's mysterious dark clouds a few days ago. It was far from what he could know with his current strength. Forget it. Xiao Hua looked at the night sky and sighed. His gaze moved away from the lingering Buddhist light in the sky and looked at the Jinshan temple that was sent flying by the bat. He thought to himself, I really have a lot of burdens. Today, I'll quickly settle the matter of Jiang Liu's death. Because he had a favor to ask of the Jinshan temple, Xiao Hua didn't dare to be too rash. He didn't release his Buddhist sense and flew above the Chen River. After a brief glance, he landed on the riverside. Then, He came out of the river and washed his hands and face. He looked around and looked at the steps from the riverside to the gate of the Jinshan temple. Putting his palms together, he walked step by step from the foot of the mountain to the gate of the Jinshan temple. Looking from midair, the Jinshan temple wasn't very high. But when he really walked, it still took Xiao Hua nearly the time it took to eat a meal. Seeing the gate of the Jinshan temple in front of him, Xiao Hua frowned. Because when he walked from the riverside to here, he didn't use his Buddhist sense. Moreover, although it was already dark, it wasn't night yet. The gate of the Jinshan temple was still closed. In particular, just now, the Buddhist bell of the Jinshan temple rang 64 times. Everyone in the Deity temple knew that there would be a ceremony to celebrate in the temple. Although the Jinshan temple was smaller than the Deity temple, the abbot of the Jinshan temple was great Zen master Jimye. His seniority was much higher than that of the Deity temple's Shin-chan. How could the Jinshan temple not celebrate? What if there was no ceremony? Xiao Hua frowned and pondered. He had already arrived in front of the gate of the Jinshan temple. The gate of the Jinshan temple wasn't bright and couldn't be compared with that of the Deity temple. But it definitely wasn't shabby. It seemed that the incense was good. Looking at the bronze door knocker that didn't move in the wind, Xiao Hua raised his hand and was about to slap it. At this time, Xiao Hua suddenly smelled a pungent wine fragrance. Within the wine fragrance was a very tempting mellow fragrance. Xiao Hua was absolutely familiar with this fragrance, but he hadn't smelled it for a long time. It was the ordinary fragrance of meat in the mortal world. Xiao Hua wryly smiled. His hand immediately froze in the air. Creak. The gate of the Jinshan temple opened, revealing a small gap. A tall and fat monk with a lotus leaf pouch in one hand and a wine jar under his other arm opened the door while looking back. He was tiptoeing out of the temple. Xiao Hua saw this and was about to speak. The fat monk just happened to turn his head and saw Xiao Hua's hand. He unconsciously screamed, "Ah!" It seemed that he was scared. The lotus leaf pouch and wine jar in his hand immediately fell down. Seeing that the wine jar was about to shatter and the meat in the lotus leaf pouch fell into the dust, Xiao Hua helplessly waved his hand and the two landed smoothly on the ground. "Little monk, you want to scare me to death. Do you not want to live anymore?" At this time, the fat monk Ju Ru regained his wits and immediately became furious. He raised his arm's bowl-sized fist and smashed it towards Xiao Hua's nose. "Amitabha!" Xiao Hua extended a finger and pointed it at Monk Ju Ru's fist. Monk Ju Ru immediately felt as if he was struck by lightning. All the fat on his body was rapidly trembling. Monk Ju Ru's eyes were filled with horror. He hurriedly kneeled on the ground and cried, "Grandpa, spare me, get up." Xiao Hua coldly shouted, "This little monk is TPU. Today, I came to see Great Zen Master Nirvana. Greetings junior brother, martial uncle." Monk Ju Ru hurriedly got up from the ground and clasped his hands together. "This little monk Ming Shen greets martial uncle." "Okay." Xiao Hua nodded. "Why aren't you going to help this little monk inform him?" "This." Ming Shen opened his mouth and wanted to say something. However, he saw Xiao Hua slightly lowering his head to look at the wine jar and lotus leaf bag on the ground. How could he dare to talk back? He whispered, "Martial uncle, please wait a moment. This little monk will immediately help you inform him." Saying this, he revealed a charming smile and lowered his head to grab the wine jar and lotus leaf bag. He quickly ran past Xiao Hua's side and rushed into the forest next to the temple. Not long after, he hurriedly ran back and rushed into the Jinshan temple. When he ran past Xiao Hua, he didn't forget to whisper, "Martial uncle, please wait a moment. This little monk will immediately return." Sure enough, not long after Ming Shen entered the temple, an old monk came over with a lantern in his hand. This old monk's eyes were muddy. He was clearly not a senior monk who specialized in Buddhist arts. The old monk walked in front of the temple door and opened it. He looked at Xiao Hua, who was respectfully standing at the door, and asked, "Little monk, you are called TPU?" "Yes, this little monk is called TPU. I came to visit Great Zen Master Nirvana." Xiao Hua clasped his hands together and didn't dare to be negligent. "Amitabha, This old monk is Yongzhong. As soon as the old monk opened his mouth, Xiao Hua was startled. This young character's seniority was really high. He didn't even know how to address him. Hihi, you can just call this old monk martial uncle. The old monk Yongzhong seemed to like this kind of surprise very much. He smiled and said, "Did you come to the Jinshan temple for a visit?" "Ah." Xiao Hua once again bitterly smiled. Although this Yongzhong was not as old as the old monk of the exquisite temple, his ears were just as bad. He could only say again, "Okay, martial uncle knows." This little monk came to visit great Zen master. "Oh, you haven't eaten yet. Come, little monk, come with this old monk. Ming Shen and the others have just eaten. There is still some left in the vegetarian restaurant. You can eat to fill your stomach." The old monk Yongzhong smiled and stretched out his hand to grab Xiao Hua's wrist. Xiao Hua was surprised. As long as it was a cultivator, even if they were very familiar with each other, it was impossible for them to hand their wrist to others. Who knew if others had other thoughts? As long as they got close, his life might be in great danger. However, Xiao Hua didn't bat an eyelid. He stretched out his hand to hold the old monk's arm and smiled. "Martial uncle is old, let this disciple help martial uncle." Okay. The old monk Yongzhong smiled. He took the lantern and turned around. With Xiao Hua's help, he walked into the temple and said, "Nowadays, there are very few sensible little monks like you. This old monk is busy in the temple all day long. I don't see Ming Shen and the others helping this old monk. Alas, it's really getting worse with each generation." Xiao Hua smiled and didn't speak. He looked around and roughly looked at the front yard of the Jinshan temple. There was nothing special about the front yard of the Jinshan temple. It was similar to the Deity temple and even the little golden temple. It was just a large open space. Facing the temple gate was the main hall. On both sides of the main hall were side halls. At this time, except for the faint candles in the main hall, the side halls were dark. What made Xiao Hua laugh was that when he looked towards the side hall, the monk named Ming Shen was squatting down and sneaking past the front of the side hall. He was fleeing towards the temple gate that had yet to be closed. After walking through the main hall, the sound of chanting could be heard. Xiao Hua's gaze swept across the hall, only to see a golden statue of a Buddha covered in red cloth beside it. Below the statue, there were two large red candles. One of them was only burning halfway and had already been extinguished, while the other was about to burn out, its flame already dim. In front of the altar, a dozen monks of different ages were sitting cross-legged in an uneven manner. These monks were sitting crookedly, and each of them looked listless. -12. Chapter 3489. Hee. Xiao Hua laughed. It seemed that there were hundreds of different people, and there were also hundreds of different monks. Perhaps because the old monk's lantern attracted the attention of these monks, they immediately sat upright, and the chanting from their mouths became louder. There was even the rhythmic sound of a wooden fish. However, the old monk Yongzhong seemed not to have noticed and simply ignored them. He passed through the main hall and walked towards the backyard. Just as he was about to pass through the courtyard gate, a tall monk came from the backyard. This monk had thick eyebrows and big eyes, looking very mighty. "Martial ancestor, who is this?" The monk came face to face with Xiao Hua, frowned and asked the old monk Yongzhong. "Oh, Miao Fa, this is the little monk who came to my Jinshan temple for a meal." The old monk Yongzhong looked up and weakly replied, "Martial ancestor, I am Miao Chen." When the monk heard that it was a little monk for a meal, he no longer paid attention to him and started to walk away. Xiao Hua did not dare to delay and hurriedly withdrew his hand and put his palms together. Amitabha, this little monk TPU greets martial ancestor Miao Chen, En. Miao Chen nodded slightly and smiled. "Go quickly, there is not much food left. If you don't go now, you won't be able to eat it." "No need," Xiao Hua hurriedly said. This little monk came to visit great Zen master Ji Mie. "Oh." Miao Chen was surprised and released his Buddhist sense. He opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but in the end, it turned into a sigh. Ari, this little monk will talk to martial ancestor Yongzhong. However, if you want to see the abbot, I'm afraid it will not be easy. After that, Miao Chen quickly walked away. Xiao Hua frowned. The scene of this Jinshan temple was really strange. Miao Chen's Buddhist sense might not be able to see Xiao Hua's strength, but Xiao Hua could tell that Miao Chen should be at Ming Shen's level of cultivation. He could be considered an expert who was one step away from becoming a master. However, it seemed that Miao Chen's mood was somewhat depressed. Thinking about that Ming Shen, he actually stole wine and meat from the temple and went out to enjoy himself. This was really inconceivable. Let's go, little monk, there will be no more food in a while. The old monk Yongzhong was quite persistent. He pulled Xiao Hua's hand again and insisted on inviting Xiao Hua to enjoy the vegetarian meal. Fortunately, when Xiao Hua followed the old monk to the backyard, the vegetarian meal in the Jinshan temple had already been finished by the monks, which made the old monk Yongzhong really unhappy. He seemed to be very embarrassed to Xiao Hua and insisted on inviting Xiao Hua to his quiet room to drink tea. There were also a few hot-headed monks in Jinshan temple. They all had sincere and apologetic smiles on their faces, but there seemed to be a trace of worry in their smiles. When they arrived at the old monk Yongzhong's simple meditation room, a quick-witted young monk also ran over from the kitchen. The old monk took out a teapot, and the young monk hurriedly took the teapot and quickly walked away. Xiao Hua then said with a smile, "Martial uncle, there is no need to be so polite. I just have some matters to discuss with the great Zen master." Great Zen master? At this time, the old monk Yongzhong finally understood. He opened his turbid eyes and looked up and down at Xiao Hua. It was not clear whether he saw clearly, so he asked, "What matter does this little monk have to meet with the abbot?" "All right, martial uncle knows." This little monk just wanted to ask. Seeing that the old monk had finally asked, Xiao Hua hurriedly explained. Unfortunately, before he could finish speaking, another wave of hurried footsteps could be heard. A slightly hoarse voice shouted, "Martial ancestor, martial ancestor." Following this voice, Miao Chen pushed the door and rushed in. Xiao Hua did not dare to be negligent and hurriedly got up. The old monk glanced at Miao Chen and asked curiously, "Miao Chen, didn't you go to the evening class? Why did you come to this old monk's place?" "Martial uncle, I am Miao Fa." Miao Fa, who looked exactly the same as Miao Chen, plopped down on the praying mat that Xiao Hua was sitting on before. He grinned, then pointed at the praying mat not far away and said to Xiao Hua, "Little monk, go over there and sit." "Oh, Miao Fa, now is the time for the evening class. Why didn't you go to the temple for the evening class? Why did you come to this old monk's place?" the old monk asked in a low voice. Xiao Hua looked at this seemingly reckless monk and did not say anything. He walked to the praying mat not far away and sat down, looking at the two with a smile. That monk by the name of Miao Chen ignored Xiao Hua. He was in a hurry, moreover, with a mysterious expression, he lowered his voice and asked urgently, "Grandmaster, that bodhisattva who achieved fruition just now, which temple is he from?" "Attained enlightenment." Although the old monk Yongzhong was hard of hearing, he heard the two words "attained enlightenment" clearly. His wrinkled face immediately showed bitterness, and he shook his head. How would this old monk know? "Martial uncle, the entire Pure Land is boiling. The Buddhist bell in every temple has rung 64 times. This disciple heard it on the way, so I hurriedly rushed back." "How could you send this disciple away with just a few words?" Miao Chen was somewhat anxious. "Miao Chen, if you want to know, you can ask the abbot." The Buddhist edict of Leiyin Temple was received by the abbot. The old monk Yongzhong said with a smile, the abbot was preaching in the main hall. When he heard the Buddhist bell ringing in the temple, his face changed greatly. Before the 64 bell rings ended, he stood up and walked to the front of the main hall without saying a word. He looked at the flowing Buddhist light in the sky, sighed, and went to the meditation room. The Buddhist edict of Leiyin Temple was received by the abbot when he was halfway there. The abbot didn't even look at it. Now he is still in seclusion. How can this old monk tell you? How about this old monk go to the meditation room and ask the abbot to take out the Buddhist edict? Hearing this, Miao Chen hurriedly shrank his neck. The excitement on his face had long disappeared. He stretched out his hand and hurriedly waved it with a smile. Martial uncle, this disciple just wants to know which senior attained the rare Bodhisattva Buddhist fruit. It doesn't matter whether I know or not. How dare I disturb the abbot's meditation? Miao Chen looked at Xiao Hua and asked, "Little monk, come to Jinshan Temple." Unfortunately, you came at the wrong time. While they were talking, the little monk who had just gone out to make tea came back. He carefully made tea for the 3 monks and respectfully stood beside the old monk Yongzhong, waiting for instructions. Go. After finishing the evening class, rest early. These few days, focus your mind and don't make any mistakes. Yongzhong looked at the little monk and said with a smile. The little monk's face was filled with sorrow. He whispered, "Martial uncle, if this disciple accidentally makes any mistakes, you must bear with it. Ian, this old monk knows. Go." The old monk Yongzhong nodded. Only then did the little monk respectfully leave the meditation room. Although Xiao Hua didn't know the inside story, after listening to the old monk Yongzhong's words and Miao Chen's expression, he had already guessed the matter. Attaining the fruit was the goal of all the eminent monks in the Pure Land world. Seeing that someone had taken a step ahead of them, others inevitably felt some envy and jealousy in their heart. However, Xiao Hua pretended not to know and said with a smile, "This little monk didn't come here to register. I just wanted to ask Great Zen Master Ji Mie something. This little monk doesn't understand why it's unlucky." Miao Chen rolled his eyes. Unlucky is unlucky. What's there to say? With that, Miao Chen picked up the teacup. He didn't dare to check whether the tea inside was hot or not. He opened his mouth and swallowed it. "Little monk, why are you looking for my abbot?" The old monk Yongzhong finally asked. Xiao Hua hurriedly said, "This little monk wants to ask, how did Great Zen Master Ji Mie get out of the Nirvana realm, Pu?" Miao Chen originally wanted to swallow the tea, but after hearing Xiao Hua's words, he spat it out all at once. It covered Xiao Hua's bald head. He said in astonishment, "What? You want to ask Abbot about the Nirvana realm?" After saying that, Miao Chen came to his senses and hurriedly apologized. "Oh, I'm sorry, little monk." Speaking to hear, Miao Chen's eyes lit up. He saw that the tea that was spat on Xiao Hua's head rolled over and turned into a sparkling water ball that spun in the air. Amitabha, this poor monk has been disrespectful. Only now did Miao Chen realize that Xiao Hua's cultivation was not ordinary. He hurriedly put his palms together and said. Xiao Hua flung his monk robe and sent the water ball out of the meditation room. He said with a smile, "It's okay. You and I are both Buddhist disciples. How can there be any disrespect?" Miao Chen smiled and asked curiously, "I wonder what is junior brother's Dharma name? Which senior asked junior brother to come and see my abbot? Do you have any letters or Buddhist documents?" This little monk is TPU. It was Green Lotus Temple's senior brother Ci Hui who recommended this little monk to find Great Zen Master Ji Mie. Xiao Hua didn't hide it and said, originally senior brother Ci Hui wanted to come with this little monk, but senior brother Ci Hui had some important matters to attend to and couldn't come. This little monk came in a hurry and didn't bring any letters. Strange. Miao Chen was very puzzled. He looked up and down at Xiao Hua and said, "This little monk Ci Hui, this poor monk has seen him before. Abbot also admires him." That year, the two of them debated Buddhism for several days. "He also has a good understanding of my abbot. He should know that my abbot is most afraid of people mentioning Great Zen Master. How could he recommend you to Jinshan Temple?" The one who recommended Xiao Hua to Jinshan Temple was naturally Great Snow Mountain's Master Qing Chen. However, Master Qing Chen had already passed away. Moreover, Master Qing Chen's death was greatly related to the West Ci. Even if you beat Xiao Hua to death, Xiao Hua wouldn't mention it. Strange, Great Zen Master Ji Mie's Dharma name is Great Zen Master Ji Mie. Why is it taboo to talk about Great Zen Master Ji Mie? Xiao Hua intentionally or unintentionally led the topic to Great Zen Master Ji Mie. Miao Chen shrugged and replied, "This poor monk doesn't know. If junior brother wants to ask, you can ask martial ancestor Yongzhong. Hehe, it's a long story." The old monk Yongzhong shook his head slightly. He picked up the teacup and sipped it. After a while, he said, "Little monk, if you want to know more about great Zen master Ji Mie, you should call Ci Hui over. Perhaps Abbot and Ci Hui can talk about it." Unfortunately, Xiao Hua looked at the two and said with a bitter smile, "I'm afraid that Ci Hui has already arrived at Lei Yin Temple. If this little monk wants to find him, it will be difficult." Lei Yin Temple? Why did Ci Hui go to Lei Yin Temple? Miao Chen was very puzzled. However, he poured another cup of tea and swallowed it in one gulp. He looked at Xiao Hua and asked. -12. Chapter 3490. Senior brother Miao Chen, you should drink the tea. Xiao Hua said with a smile, otherwise, if this little monk says it out loud, senior brother will spit out the tea again. Miao Chen was slightly stunned. He hurriedly swallowed the tea, but just as he was about to swallow it, he suddenly understood. Phut! Just as Xiao Hua had expected, the tea in Miao Chen's mouth sprayed out again. Miao Chen cried out in an absolutely incredulous voice, "You! What did you say?" Ci Hui. Ci Hui achieved Bodhisattva Buddha fruit. This Buddha fruit temple's bell was rung for him? Xiao Hua smiled and shook his head. With a wave of his hand, the water droplets that filled the sky fell into his hand. With a flick of his finger, the water droplets flew out of the meditation room again. Xiao Hua's voice lightly sounded, "Yes, it is senior brother Ci Hui who achieved Bodhisattva Buddha fruit. Grandma, how is this possible? This little monk." At this point, Miao Chen immediately understood. At this time, Ci Hui was already Lei Yin Temple's Bodhisattva Manjushri. How could he still talk about him? He hurriedly put his palms together and said, "Amitabha, Bodhisattva Manjushri, forgive this disciple's great disrespect." Amitabha, so that's how it is. Old monk Yongzhong chanted the name of Buddha and sighed slightly. No wonder Abbot looks like he has aged 100 years. When Abbot debated with Tsihui about the Dharma, you even praised Tsihui's deep roots and said that he was a rare junior disciple in the Pure Land world. Who would have thought that in just a few years, he actually achieved Bodhisattva Buddha fruit, if Abbot? Alas, let's not talk about it. Xiao Hua said with a smile, as far as this disciple knows, Ci Hui's cultivation in this life is sloppy. At best, he is only in the realm of enlightenment. He only achieved Bodhisattva Buddha fruit because of his previous life's merit. Great Zen Master Ji Mie should know about this, right? Others naturally can. Monk Yongzhong shook his head, but Abbot can't. This is his heart demon. Why is it a heart demon? Xiao Hua asked. Although Monk Yongzhong was old, he was still impenetrable. He said with a smile, "Little monk, you should ask Abbot yourself. This old monk doesn't dare to speak carelessly." Xiao Hua was helpless. He accompanied the two of them to talk for a while. Miao Chen brought Xiao Hua out and had the little novice monk find a guest room for Xiao Hua. After saluting, Miao Chen left. Xiao Hua pushed open the window of the guest room and saw the crescent moon in the sky. He sighed inwardly, alas, it's the 22nd day of the 12th lunar month again. Tomorrow is the Lunar New Year. I wonder if the Pure Land has the custom of celebrating the Lunar New Year. Thinking about these days, Xiao Hua couldn't help but feel irritated. Now that he had left the Black Wind Ridge for so long, he wondered how the Black Bear Spirit, Liu Yi, and the others were doing. Fortunately, they had set up the capital star formation at Black Wind Ridge before they left. Otherwise, Xiao Hua really didn't know how they would deal with unexpected accidents. I have to hurry back. If he didn't seize the opportunity to return to the Dawn Rain continent before the spatial meridian completely collapsed, then he would have to cross the Eastern Sea and Southern Sea to return. That would take a long time, and the outcome would be difficult to predict. Even if the Black Wind Ridge had the capital star formation, I'm afraid it wouldn't be able to withstand the crazy attack of the Copper Pillar State. Xiao Hua thought and was about to release his Buddhist sense. However, Just as his Buddhist sense swept through the main hall, Xiao Hua hesitated again. Great Zen Master Nirvana was the only senior monk he knew who could come out of the Nirvana realm. He could only rely on Great Zen Master Nirvana to awaken Jiang Liuer. He absolutely couldn't offend him. Forget it. Let's wait for 2 more days and see how the situation is. However, things were beyond Xiao Hua's expectations. For 3 consecutive days, he didn't see the shadow of Great Zen Master Nirvana at all. The monks in the entire temple were trembling with fear. All of them were absent-minded and panicked. They seemed to be slacking in their morning and evening classes. Except for the old monk Yongzhong who came to see Xiao Hua from time to time, the others didn't seem to know that a lone monk had come to the temple. This kind of mood was contagious. Even the good men and women who came to the temple to offer incense and alms could feel it. After kowtowing and burning incense, they hurriedly left, not daring to stay in the Jinshan temple for a moment longer. Xiao Hua now knew where Great Zen Master Nirvana's meditation room was. The door of the meditation room was tightly shut. Xiao Hua wanted to go up and knock on the door several times, or use his Buddhist sense to explore, but he restrained himself. On the 5th day, before dawn, Xiao Hua, who was sitting cross-legged in meditation, heard a clamor outside the door. When Xiao Hua opened the door, he saw the monks of the Jinshan temple. They were all wearing thin monk robes and holding huge buckets with sharp bottoms. These monks were lined up with solemn faces. One by one, they ran through the corridor, across the open space in front of the main hall, and out of the temple gate. After a long time, these monks raised their hands flat. The huge buckets were filled with river water. They quickly returned and lined up to the back mountain of the Jinshan temple. The back mountain was a large vegetable field. These monks ran to the vegetable field and stopped in front of it. At the entrance of the vegetable field stood an old monk who, although tall, was extremely skinny, almost like a bag of bones. The old monk held a monk's staff in his hand. It was as thick as a duck's egg and several feet long. The monks stopped in front of the old monk. The old monk's eyes were like lightning. He swept the wooden buckets in the monk's hands. If the water in the wooden buckets was not enough, he waved his hand. The monk's face immediately became joyful. He ran to one side of the vegetable field and poured the water in the buckets there. Then, he entered the Jinshan temple from another side. If the water in the buckets was not enough, the old monk would not be polite and hit the monk with the monk's staff. Pa! The sound was very ear-piercing. The monk who was hit grimaced in pain. Then, he poured the water in the buckets to the side and returned to the Jinshan temple. They should be going down the mountain to fetch water. After watching for a while, Xiao Hua was speechless. There were many monks fetching water. It seemed that other than the old monk Yongzhong, even Miao Fa and Miao Chen, who were at the Bright Body Realm, were obediently fetching water with buckets. They were all very well behaved. Moreover, Xiao Hua could clearly see that either Miao Chen or Miao Fa had been hit by the old monk's staff. It was so painful that the corners of their mouths were crooked. "Who are you?" Xiao Hua had been watching for a long time. The old monk naturally noticed. He coldly swept his gaze and scolded. Xiao Hua frowned. He flew up from the guest room and landed in front of the old monk. He put his palms together and bowed. Amitabha. Little monk TPU greets Great Zen Master Jimia. Seeing that Xiao Hua's age was similar to Ci Hui's, his tone was similar to Ci Hui's, and even the way he flew was the same, Great Zen Master Jimia felt a wave of irritation in his heart. He waved his hand as if he was shooing a fly and said, "No need to be polite. My Jinshan temple will not be receiving monks for the next few days. Little monk, quickly leave." As he spoke, he waved the staff in his hand and hit Ming Shen's back. Ming Shen's figure staggered, and the water in the wooden bucket spilled out. Great Zen Master Jimia scolded, "Damn it. You only know how to steal wine and eat meat. Where did your meat go? Why are you so weak?" This disciple. Ming Shen's face was deathly pale. He mumbled a few words but didn't dare to say more. "Quickly scram. If you don't fetch 200 buckets today, you are not allowed to eat." Great Zen Master Jimia scolded. Ming Shun was scared witless and left in a sorry state. Great Zen Master Ji Mie coldly looked at Xiao Hua and said, "Little monk, why are you still not leaving? Could it be that you want this old monk to send you out? How can the Buddhist children of today be so insensible?" Seeing Great Zen Master Ji Mie's appearance, Xiao Hua bitterly smiled in his heart. He finally understood why Great Snow Mountain's Master Qing Chen insisted on bringing him here that day, and even why Jietai Temple's Master Ming turned around when he saw Jinshan Temple in front of him. This Great Zen Master Ji Mie really didn't have the demeanor of a Great Zen Master. He was really a boring Great Zen Master. However, Xiao Hua still suppressed his displeasure. He respectfully bowed and said, "This little monk, TPU, encountered something related to nirvana while chanting Buddhist scriptures. My heart was very puzzled. I heard that Jinshan Temple has a great Zen master named Nirvana. I was secretly delighted and specially came to your esteemed temple to ask Great Zen Master about the cause and effect of nirvana." Great Zen Master Ji Mie sneered. His eyebrows twitched a few times for no reason. He was not moved by Xiao Hua's modesty at all and said, "Just because you are named Nirvana, you can comprehend nirvana? Your name is TPU. Could it be that you are body? As the name implies, it is the doings of Confucian cultivators. Our Buddhist children are chanting Buddhist scriptures with the spirit in their hearts. How can someone like you, who is chanting Buddhist scriptures with your naked eyes, be worthy of talking about nirvana? You should obediently go back and properly chant Buddhist scriptures. It won't be too late to come to my Jinshan temple after you understand one or two things." Xiao Hua was angry. His expression changed and said, "This little monk originally heard that Jinshan Temple's great Zen master Ji Mie's Buddhist teachings were profound and his Buddhist techniques were divine. That's why this little monk came from afar to ask for guidance. But I didn't expect that great Zen master was actually like this. This little monk is truly disappointed. Ha ha ha, little monk, what do you think a great Zen master should be like? Is it amiable? Or is it approachable? Is it open-minded like a valley? Or is it open-minded like the world?" Great Zen Master Ji Mie laughed loudly. "So what if this old monk punished these disciples? They are bitterly burdened by their own bodies. They are unable to cleanse their minds and wholeheartedly follow Buddha. They have always been worried about their lives. This old monk only wanted to let them know that everything in this world is a burden. This old monk's punishment is a burden. This old monk's reward is also a burden. Watering the ground is tiring. Carrying water is also tiring. Only by attaining fruit and engraving the name of Buddha in Leiyin Temple can they be free. Mph, the so-called body tree originally has no tree. The mirror also has no platform. Originally there was nothing. Where did the dust come from?" Xiao Hua sneered, "But cultivation is not necessarily restricted to form. Perhaps it is wine and meat in the mouth, but there is no Buddha in the heart. Or perhaps it is saying Amitabha Buddha while holding a blood blade in the hand. Great Zen Master, which one is following Buddha?" This little monk really didn't expect that Great Zen Master would actually fall into such a low position. You can only have your body like a body tree, your heart like a mirror, constantly wiping it and not letting the dust come from it. Insolent little monk. Great Zen Master Ji Mie was somewhat embarrassed and angry. "I don't know where you learned a few words of debate from, but you came to debate Buddhist teachings with this old monk. Just what are your intentions? If you want to become famous at such a young age, you have come to the wrong place." -12. Chapter 3491. Ha ha. Xiao Hua raised his head and laughed loudly. He pointed his finger and said, "If this little monk wants to become famous, why don't I go find Ci Hui? He has just attained the Buddha fruit of Manjushri Bodhisattva. Wouldn't he be more useful than you? Besides, Great Zen Master, humans are humans. You and I are only Buddha, not Bodhisattvas. It's nothing to be envious and jealous. If you don't even dare to express the jealousy in your heart, how can you throw away your own skin? How can you attain Buddha fruit? Don't you admit that you are so anxious because you heard the news of Ci Hui attaining Buddha fruit? Perhaps your heart has already been bedeviled, but you still feel that you. At this moment, Xiao Hua decided to use a plan to provoke him. Although he didn't say that he knew that great Zen master Nirvana had experienced Nirvana before, these few short sentences were very heartbreaking. It was as if a small knife had dug out great Zen master Nirvana's heart. The monks of Jinshan Temple who were stunned at the sight now had even more fear on their faces. They all wanted to escape, but they were afraid of attracting great Zen master Nirvana's attention. They very pitifully stood there, not daring to move. Without waiting for Xiao Hua to finish speaking, great Zen master Nirvana was furious. After so many years, who dared to say such words to him? Which monk who came to his door didn't respectfully ask for guidance from him? The most important thing was that Xiao Hua's words really touched his heart, completely tearing his face apart. Roar! Great Zen master Nirvana roared. It was the Buddhist lion roar. Although this roar wasn't directed at the monks, nor was it directed at Xiao Hua, a fierce wind blew above Jinshan Temple. The monks tried their best to cover their ears and squatted on the ground. Some of them who didn't have cultivation even painfully rolled on the ground. Hehe, did this little monk hit the nail on the head? Xiao Hua chuckled. His voice was even louder, seeing Xiao Hui attaining Buddha fruit, and thinking about how high my seniority is and how I also have attainments in cultivation. Back then Xiao Hui was still very respectful in front of me. Perhaps he even praised him a few times that day. But I didn't expect him to reach the peak all of a sudden. Looking at myself, I'm as helpless as a flower in the mirror and the moon in the water. Damn it! Great Zen Master Nirvana clapped his hands, and the Buddhist light above his head shone brightly. A dazzling golden Buddhist palm appeared and slammed towards Xiao Hua. You're angry out of humiliation, don't tell me. Great Zen Master Nirvana, you want to silence me by killing me? Xiao Hua sneered. He didn't dare to use the hand of a nascent soul, but golden light flashed all over his body as he used his transcendence golden body. The golden light was similar to the Buddha's light. He raised his hand, and a fist that wasn't inferior to the Buddha's palm hit the Buddha's palm. Boom! With a loud sound, the entire Jinshan temple shook. Xiao Hua's golden body was actually hit by the Nirvana Buddha palm, and he almost stepped on the main hall of the Jinshan temple. Xiao Hua didn't dare to be negligent. Auspicious clouds appeared under his feet and he hurriedly flew towards Chenjiang below Jinshan temple. Little monk, don't even think about leaving. At this moment, great Zen Master Nirvana was truly burning with anger. His face was purple like an eggplant. Auspicious clouds also appeared under his feet as he chased after Xiao Hua. He even threw the Zen staff in his hand into the air and it actually transformed into the appearance of a heavenly dragon. It bared its fangs and brandished its claws as it pounced towards Xiao Hua. Who's afraid of you? Xiao Hua sneered. However, he was also somewhat anxious in his heart. After all, from the great Zen Master Nirvana's palm just now, no matter what, he was still at the early stage of the canopy transformation realm. With Xiao Hua's Buddhist cultivation, he definitely wasn't his opponent. Of course, Xiao Hua also believed that this was merely the result of great Zen Master Nirvana's humiliation turning into anger. He only needed to endure for a moment, and when great Zen Master Nirvana's anger subsided, he would also stop. Xiao Hua's life would definitely not be in any danger. Immediately, Xiao Hua similarly waved his hand. The 9 dragons' monk staff flew out from the space, roaring as it transformed into 9 small dragons and fought with the heavenly dragon. Just like that, the 10 heavenly dragons above Chenjiang turned the clouds and rain with one turn of the hand, tossing the entire Chenjiang until the river water surged violently. The waves reached the sky, and it was truly a scene of devastation. Little monk, as expected, you came prepared. Great Zen Master Nirvana sneered. Today, this old monk will fulfill your wish and let you become famous in one battle. As he spoke, great Zen Master Nirvana chanted incantations. His hands formed a Buddhist seal, and the Buddhist light around his body flourished. Along with great Zen Master Nirvana's Buddhist seal, a thin Buddhist light appeared like heavenly flowers in the space several dozen feet to the left of Xiao Hua. 2 or 3 heavenly women with benevolent faces and charming brows appeared. Their hands and legs danced, and along with this indescribable heavenly dance, a sound that was even louder than the sound of Sanskrit appeared. When that sound was heard, it was as if ants were crawling on one's heart, and a kind of indescribable heat was born from the lower abdomen. Just as Xiao Hua was frowning, he suddenly became alert again. He stretched out his right arm and grabbed towards the bottom behind him. Peng! A pitch-black trident was caught in Xiao Hua's hand. Xiao Hua coldly snorted and turned around to look. It was a pitch-black, ugly yakshaw that was several feet in size. It had poked out from the void to sneak attack him. Seeing that its trident was caught by Xiao Hua, the yakshaw was not anxious at all. With a shake of its hand, not only did it transform into a Buddhist light and disappear into the void, but even the trident also instantly transformed into several heavenly flowers, slowly drifting in the air. Not only that, just as the heavenly flowers drifted down a few feet, no less than 10 yakshas appeared around Xiao Hua at the same time. Each of them bared their teeth and fiercely waved the tridents in their hands towards Xiao Hua's transcendent's golden body. Hit! Xiao Hua did not hesitate. The Buddhist light around his body flashed, and his hands formed a Buddhist seal. The power of the mountains was immediately born. Around Xiao Hua, fist-sized stones appeared. These stones also flashed with Buddhist light and burst out in all directions. When the stones streaked across the sky and flew in front of the yakshaw and the heavenly maiden, these stones had already transformed into several feet in size. Peng peng peng! A series of muffled sounds rang out. The yaksha's tridents were shattered, and each of them turned into Buddhist light. The charming heavenly maiden was ruthlessly shattered by the huge stones, and immediately turned into countless heavenly flowers that drifted over the Chen River. Little monk, you really have some foundation. You actually know the mountainous Buddhist seal. Great Zen Master Nirvana coldly watched, and then glanced at the 9-dragon tin staff that was fighting with the Buddhist staff. He snorted, "No wonder you dare to come to my golden mountain temple to cause trouble." Seeing that great Zen Master Nirvana's temperament was so extreme, Xiao Hua was also helpless. At this moment, it was not convenient for him to ask for advice. Xiao Hua only hoped that he could reach a deal without fighting with great Zen Master Nirvana, and then he would gradually ask about Nirvana's secret. What? Great Zen Master, is there a problem with this little monk knowing the power of the mountains? Xiao Hua also sneered, "This is the first time this little monk has used this demon-subduing method on my Buddhist sect's Arhat. Unlike some senior monks who only attack their own disciples. Ha ha ha, this old monk would believe such funny words." Great Zen Master Nirvana laughed loudly, "Since you have the heart, then this old monk will not be polite. You have to be careful, this old monk's power of karma, sometimes this old monk can't control it." The power of karma. Xiao Hua was slightly stunned, and did not dare to be negligent. He hurriedly formed hand seals again. He had already comprehended the power of the mountains quite well, and now he had already entered the second layer. However, he had not truly comprehended the power of karma. Hearing that great Zen Master Nirvana actually knew the power of karma, and what he used just now, Xiao Hua's heart immediately became vigilant. He did not know what the second layer of karma was. Amitabha Buddha, Amitabha Buddha, Amitabha Buddha. Suddenly, great Zen Master Nirvana's body chanted Buddhist names one after another. Then, great Zen Master Nirvana's body also uncontrollably swelled up. Moreover, as his body swelled up, another head grew out from great Zen Master Nirvana's back, and under this head, 2 more hand seals grew out. Ah! Xiao Hua was greatly stunned. Looking at great Zen Master Nirvana's strange 2-headed and 4-armed body, an indescribable feeling of absurdity arose in his heart. That's right, in Xiao Hua's impression, this should be the demon statue of the blood-dripping paradise. How could the Buddhist sect's demon-subduing methods be like this? However, before Xiao Hua could come to his senses, he saw the surrounding temperature plummet. Previously, within the heavenly flowers, red spikes suddenly grew out. These spikes grew increasingly and swallowed the entire heavenly flowers. Those spikes rapidly spread, instantly covering the entire sky. Moreover, as they spread, the spikes slowly turned into the shape of a lotus. In particular, the red color of the entire sky looked similar to a huge lotus, At the same time, an incomparable palpitating feeling arose in Xiao Hua's heart. Red lotus karmic fire? Xiao Hua was greatly shocked. Naturally, Xiao Hua had used this fire of karmic fire before. However, later on, because there were many other divine abilities, Xiao Hua no longer used the dream-punishing dagger as well as the soul-punishing light. However, he didn't expect to see it again in the Golden Mountain Temple of the Western Paradise. Moreover, the great Zen Master Nirvana's red lotus karmic fire was clearly much stronger than his by a little bit. Facing such a powerful opponent, Xiao Hua's divine ability of the Buddhist sect was probably no match for it. However, Xiao Hua wasn't willing to be outdone. His hands once again formed a seal. Layers of mountains flashed out from the Buddhist light. Like roaring earth dragons, they pounced towards the red lotus that hadn't yet formed. Unfortunately, although these mountains looked thick and the Buddhist light was also brilliant, upon contact with the red lotus karmic fire, they instantly turned into drops of golden liquid. This restriction flowed into the karmic fire and disappeared without a trace. It didn't cause any ripples at all. Xiao Hua was helpless. He lowered his head and glanced at the lotus platform that didn't immediately close. He knew that this was the way out that the great Zen Master Nirvana left for him. Almost without thinking, he pulled himself out of the gap in the red lotus karmic fire. However, who would have thought that just as he escaped from the karmic fire, before he could withdraw his Dharma body, an enormous force pressed down on him. It was actually the force of mountains that Xiao Hua was familiar with. Xiao Hua was rather caught off guard. Moreover, he was originally flying downwards. With a loud plop, the golden body sank into the Chen River. At the same time, roar. The 9 dragon staff also wailed and fell from the sky. It sank to the bottom of the river with Xiao Hua. 12. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,